Chapter 1292. I understand what you mean. You want me to take over Lu Shihua's body, right? Ju Yu finally understood what Xian meant. Only an emperor sword wielder could defend against Guhan's revenge in the future. And at this time, although Yangjing City had 9 immortal sword-level sword wielders, there was not a single one of them that could be molded. Once Dao Haotian's sword emperor passed away, Yangjing City would definitely face the bitter revenge of Ji Yuhan. Based on Ji Yuhan's attitude of not caring about the lives of ordinary people and casually going on a killing spree, when the time came, there would probably be a large number of deaths in Yangjing City, and these immortal sword wielders who had surrounded him that day would not be able to get away with it. Hence, in the future, Yangjing City would need an emperor sword-level sword wielder to be able to fight against Ji Yuhan and protect the lives of the sword wielders in Yangjing City. The one who had the highest chance of becoming an emperor sword wielder was Guhan's disciple Lu Shihua. Lu Shihua was Yangjing City's trump card to protect itself in the future. But the problem was that Lu Shihua and Guhan were very close. They were like father and daughter. Lu Shihua was also a very determined person. She would never betray Guhan. At this point, everything was very clear. Just like what Ju Yu had said, the situation had been completely reversed. Previously, it was Ju Yu who wanted to take over Lu Shihua's body. Now it was Yangjing City who wanted Ju Yu to take over Lu Shihua's body. Only then could they borrow Lu Shihua's power to protect them. Ha 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 ha. No wonder you captured Lu Shihua immediately. You've been planning on taking over Lu Shihua all along. Ju Yu laughed out loud. The great sun soared immortal and the humans around him looked ashamed. Only Xian was calm and composed. He didn't look ashamed at all, because this was all within his calculations. Ridiculous. What a joke. Now it's you humans who want Ju Yu to take over Lu Shihua's body. I've never seen something so funny in my life. Ju Yu laughed so hard his stomach hurt, if he had a stomach. Laozi said that heaven and earth are heartless and treat all living things as dogs. In my opinion, this human is heartless and treats humans as dogs. This is the nature of humans. Even after thousands of years have passed, we still can't change it. We still can't forget to scheme and kill each other. These humans are really laughable. They should have gone extinct long ago. Ha 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 ha. Done laughing? Xian waited for Ju Yu to calm down before continuing. You have 2 paths in front of you. Either you destroy all the souls in the brain, and we destroy the brain, then ask Miss Ling to be the mediator and bring Lu Shihua to apologize to Guhan. If necessary, we'll pay with our lives. This way, we can exchange for Yanjing's future peace. Why don't you release the tens of millions of human souls right now, and I'll give Lu Shihua's body to you. Then, you'll sincerely become our comrade and the human's sword wielder. In the future, we'll surround and kill Guhan in the name of Guhan slaughtering innocent people. We'll work together to kill Guhan and bring peace to the world. These 2 paths are in front of you. Which one to choose is up to you, Xian said calmly. This. Ju Yu fell silent. His heart was in a mess. If he chose the first option, humanity would definitely suffer some damage for a while. However, as long as Ji Yuhan could reconcile with Yangjing City, humanity would only need to rest and recuperate for 10 years. Then, he, Ju Yu, would only need to wait for 10 years before he could take his revenge. If he chose the second path, he could make use of these immortal sword-tier swordbearers' desire to live to temporarily feign civility with the humans and join the humans first. Although the humans would definitely not believe him, the humans still needed his strength to fight against the solid cold. If he played his cards right, he might be able to cause even greater losses to the humans in the future. Perhaps even the extinction of the human race was not a certainty. Of course, the most important thing was that Ju Yu did not want to die. He wanted to continue living. After careful consideration, Ju Yu finally gave his answer. I can help you deal with Guhan. Very good. A wise choice. Then, do as I said and release all the human souls, Xian said calmly. It's impossible to release all of them. We're not idiots. Why make such a meaningless request? Ju Yu smiled. All right. You can use the souls of all Yuzhang citizens as your bargaining chip. After you fuse with Lu Shihua's body, you can release the souls of Yuzhang citizens. Xian said. No. Zhu Yu shook his head. Don't try to play tricks with me. Jiyu Han is from Yuzhang City. Your Yangjing City and Yuzhang City have long been at loggerheads. Deep down, you might be hoping that I'll kill all the souls of Yuzhang City's people. Such a hostage is not reliable. Then what do you say? Xian asked with a frown. How about this? I'll release the souls of Yangjing citizens first. After I fuse with Xian, I'll release the souls of the remaining humans. This is the fairest and safest plan, Zhu Yu replied. All right. It's decided. Xian did not bargain further and nodded in agreement. Great. Zhu Yu will fulfill his promise now. After Zhu Yu said that, the creature's brain vibrated again. The monitoring room saw countless data being transmitted rapidly through the network. Soon, it returned to the body of its original owner. They're revived. Sir. Some of the unconscious players have woken up. Sir. All the life signals are waking up. Sir. The sword-bearers have woken up. Reports from all over Yangjing arrived in the control room. The players who were trapped in the game had woken up one by one. In a short 5 minutes, almost all the players had woken up and returned to their normal lives. How is it? Is my gift enough? Zhu Yu asked with a smile. It's time for you to fulfill your promise. All right. Xian nodded and ordered, put the helmet back on Lu Shihua. The gaming helmet reappeared on Lu Shihua's head, but it wasn't removed this time. After a series of data transmissions, Lu Shihua's helmet suddenly released a cloud of black smoke. Xian ordered his men to take off Lu Shihua's helmet, and saw Lu Shihua's clear eyes. Are you Lu Shihua or Zhu Yu? Xian asked, looking at the pair of eyes. I'm Zhu Yu. I finally have a normal human body, Zhu Yu said excitedly. However, his voice trembled violently as he spoke. It was like a motorcycle that was starting up. It was not a voice that a normal person would make. Why? Why is my voice like this? Only then did Zhu Yu realize that his voice was extremely abnormal. At the same time, when he tried to move his arms and legs, he suddenly felt a sense of helplessness, as if his limbs were not his own. Why? Why can't I control this body? Zhu Yu asked in confusion. What's so strange about that? Your soul has just taken over this body. It's like a newbie taking over a new car. You have to experience it for a while before you can use it as you please. Xian sneered. That's right. I see. Zhu Yu nodded, accepting Xian's explanation. Very good. Since you've achieved your goal, let's follow our agreement and release the remaining humans, Xian said. There's no rush. Zhu Yu smiled. I promised you that I would completely fuse with this body. So before I can control Lu Shihua's sword mistress, I will not release the remaining human souls. Are you trying to violate our agreement? Xian's expression changed as he questioned angrily. So what if I'm going against our agreement? Zhu Yu, oh. Lu Shihua sneered. To tell you the truth, I've left 1/4 of my soul in the creature's brain. Now the creature's brain is still under my control. The rest of the souls are all my trump cards. Before I kill Zhuge Kongming and Jiyu Han, these souls will stay in the creature's brain. I don't believe your bullshit about being willing to fight alongside me. I can only guarantee my safety if I have something in my hand. Zhu Yu burst into laughter. Is that so? Do you really think that your soul is in a safe body? Xian didn't show any anger after hearing Zhu Yu's words. Instead, he revealed a strange smile and put a brand new gaming helmet on Zhu Yu's head. Zhu Yu's instincts told him that something was not right. At that moment, he felt an intense pain in his soul. A strange power suddenly came from Lu Shihua's brain. The power was so strong that it shattered Zhu Yu's soul into pieces in an instant. The power then flowed through the gaming helmet and into the biological computer, wiping out Zhu Yu's soul that was left in the biological computer. Finally, a tiny dimensional vortex appeared in the research room. It only lasted for a few seconds before it dissipated. However, this meant that Zhu Yu was completely dead. Hurry up and cut off Lu Yin's head. It'll be too late, Xian said hurriedly. A few doctors rushed in and cut off Lu Shihua's head. At the same time, 2 medical pods were pushed in. The severed head and body were placed in 2 different medical pods. The whole process took less than a minute. Oh my God. Gu-han is a madman. I can't believe he came up with such a plan. Xian was sweating profusely after seeing everything was done. It was as if he was fished out of the sea. At the same time, a void gate opened, and a man and a woman walked out of the void gate. Chapter 1293. Thank you all for your hard work. Gu-han stepped out of the void gate with Liuyan Ling. Gu-han was able to enter the void gate because of Liuyan Ling's help. That was why Gu-han had been hiding in the void nearby. No wonder Liuyan Ling had been missing for so long on such an important occasion. It's fine. We didn't have any hard work to speak of. We were just afraid that Juyu would notice our flaws and fail. The great Sun Sword Immortal smiled bitterly. That's true. I didn't expect you two to be so good at acting. You even managed to trick Juyu. Gu-han laughed. Our acting is secondary. The key is your acting, Gu-han. If you hadn't tricked Juyu and made him believe that you had a falling out with Yangjing City because you weren't willing to sacrifice yourself, and even went on a killing spree in Yangjing City, Juyu wouldn't have believed us so easily. The Great Sun Sword Immortal sighed. No. Great Sun Sword Immortal, you're wrong. Gu-han shook his head. I wasn't acting. I would never sacrifice myself. I was just showing my true self. In fact, I didn't come up with this plan from the very beginning. I only came up with it when I swung my sword at those pitiful citizens. Before that, everything was my true self. There was no possibility of it being an act. Gu-han said calmly. The entire place was silent after Gu-han finished. After a few minutes, the Great Sun Sword Immortal looked at Xian in disbelief, questioning him with his eyes. That's right. This plan was indeed proposed by Jiyu Han after he left Yangjing City, and both of us came up with it. Xian nodded. Before Gu-han started his killing spree, I was also kept in the dark. I thought Gu-han was really killing to vent his anger. That's why. You didn't do all this for Juyu to see. You really want to kill. That's tens of thousands of lives we're talking about. Great Sun Sword Immortal's face turned purple. When Gu-han escaped from Yangjing and Xian came to him with Gu-han's plan, Great Sun Sword Immortal thought Gu-han had to kill to gain Juyu's trust. But the Great Sun Sword Immortal had never expected that this was not Gu-han's plan, but Gu-han's personal rage. If this was really the case, then the Gu-han standing before the Great Sun Sword Immortal right now was not some hero who had saved Yangjing City, but a blatant murderer, an executioner who had no regard for human life. At the thought of this, the Great Sun Sword Immortal could not help but clench his fists. He wanted to beat up Gu-han immediately. Enough! Xian shouted at the Great Sun Sword Immortal to stop. Gu-han was just saying it out of anger. He never started a killing spree. Think about those who lost limbs but didn't die. If not for Gu-han avoiding their vitals, they would have died long ago. No matter how advanced our medical technology is, we wouldn't be able to save them. But he still killed thousands. Great Sun Sword Immortal said angrily. Sigh. Look at this. Xian sighed. All the projectors in the control room projected countless images at the same time. At the same time, countless sounds rang out. Gu-han, you bastard, why didn't you save us? Gu-han, you can save tens of thousands of lives with one life. You've earned big. Hurry and kill yourself to save them. Kill this woman. Kill this woman. It's all because she refused to give up her life. TSK. How can our Yangjing City's sword bearers be so trashy? They can't even beat a spirit sword bearer. The Great Sun Sword Immortal's face was ashen as he looked at these images. The main characters in these images all spouted malicious words. They were bastards who took the sacrifices of others for granted. If the Great Sun Sword Immortal met such people, he would want nothing more than to kill them with one sword strike. I restarted the bat system to retrieve the recordings of the victims before they died. All of them were scumbags with cheap mouths and thoughts. It's natural for Gu-han to kill these ungrateful bastard. Xian concluded. I've already checked. The 1699 people who died in Gu-han's hands were all bastards like this. Not a single one died in vain. Actually, I believe that Gu-han didn't want to kill these people either. But if not a single one of them died, Juyu would never believe that Guhan really broke ties with Yangjing City. So Guhan needed some people to sacrifice to his sword, and these scumbags were perfect. Their deaths weren't without value. At least tens of millions of lives were saved. Great Sun Sword Immortal, there's nothing for you to be angry about, Shen concluded. What? The Great Sun Sword Immortal took a few steps back in fright. He looked at Guhan in a daze. He never thought that Guhan would be this terrifying. There were hundreds of thousands of people on the street, but Jiyu Han was actually able to remember a few thousand people who had insulted him. He was even able to control his own sword chi and kill those bastards with 100% accuracy. Just what kind of terrifying ability was needed to achieve such a feat? Me. Guhan snorted coldly. Alright, if the Great Sun Sword Immortal is dissatisfied with me and wants to avenge these people, then you can come and kill me. I, Guhan, will accompany you anytime. Your Majesty, please calm down. It's my fault. The Great Sun Sword Immortal lowered his head in shame, his face full of admiration and guilt. This time, Your Majesty the Sea King saved our Yangjing City. No, this time, Your Majesty the Sea King saved 8 human base cities. This is all thanks to Your Majesty. Yangjing City will never forget this for the rest of our lives. The truth became clear at this point in the conversation. Guhan had thought of a way to deal with Juyu when he was fighting the Sword Immortals of Yangjing City. So after escaping Yangjing City, he immediately found Liunian Ling and found Shen with her help. Finally, the two of them discussed a way to deal with Juyu before telling the Great Sun Sword Immortal the truth. Then there was the good show of the first 2 chapters. All of this was within Jiyu Han's plan. No need to thank me, Great Sun Sword Immortal. This time, the most important credit is not mine. Jiyu Han let out a long sigh. He looked at Lu Yin and Lu Shihua who were recovering in the medical cabin and sighed. This is all thanks to the sacrifice of my disciple and brother. If it wasn't for them, I really don't know how to deal with Juyu. Yes. Hearing Guhan's words, Shen and the Great Sun Sword Immortal both sighed. This was the main credit of Lu Shihua and Lu Yin. Your Majesty. Actually, there's one thing I don't understand. Why are you so sure that when Juyu's soul entered Lu Yin's brain, he would definitely die in Lu Yin's brain? How can you be so sure? The Great Sun Sword Immortal asked curiously. This is what happened on the day of my ascension, Guhan said calmly. That day, Shihua came to find me in a hurry. She said that her brother was acting very strangely, as if he had a big mental problem. I used the power of the rule of the sword chi to examine his soul. I found that there was a power of the rule hidden in Lu Yin's soul. This power of the rule had already fused with Lu Yin's soul. The two coexisted as one. If either one was missing, it would cause the other to crazily attack. At that time, I tried to use my own power of the rule to separate the two. In the end, the power of the rule hidden in Lu Yin's soul backfired and I lost a lot of power. So when I found out that Juyu was trying to take over the soul of a sword bearer with the potential to ascend to the throne, I thought of Lu Yin. If I could find a way to lead Juyu's soul into Lu Yin's brain, then Lu Yin might be able to use the power of the rule in Lu Yin's brain to directly kill Juyu's soul. After all, Juyu is only a universe rank Yuan Ku. He has not yet grasped the power of the rule. Against the power of the rule, Juyu's soul will definitely not be able to resist. He will be directly killed by the power of the rule in Lu Yin's soul. At first, I was a little worried that the power of the rule would not be able to completely wipe out Juyu's soul. Now it seems that these worries were unnecessary. The attack of the power of the rule is to defeat the opponent in terms of the rules. So no matter how many parts the opponent's soul is split into, no matter where it is hidden, it will be wiped out by the power of the rule. Therefore, even if Juyu left 1/3 of his soul in the creature's brain, it would still be instantly erased by the power of the rule. Therefore, we don't have to worry about Juyu erasing the remaining souls stored in the creature's brain. When Guhan finished speaking, he looked at Shihua in the medical pod again. His face showed a hint of guilt. But I pity my disciple. In order to make Juyu believe that he entered my disciple's body, I had to cut off her and her brother's heads and swap their bodies. Fortunately, they are siblings, so there won't be too strong of a rejection between the head and the body. We can use a large amount of medicine to suppress the rejection after the bodies are merged. Otherwise, with Ju Yu's cunning, everything would have been exposed during the DNA tests. At this point, everything came to light. Because only Lu Yin's soul could kill Ju Yu had to enter Lu Yin's body. But Lu Yin wasn't even a sword bearer. Ju Yu wouldn't take the initiative to enter Lu Yin's body. Only Lu Shihua, who had already synchronized the 4 angel swords and would ascend to the throne, was Ju Yu's target. So the problem Guhan and Xian had to solve was how to make Ju Yu believe that Lu Yin was Lu Shihua. Chapter 1294. In the beginning, Xian's idea was simple. Lu Yin and Lu Shihua were siblings. They looked very similar. They didn't even need plastic surgery. Simple makeup was enough to turn Lu Yin into Lu Shihua. However, this idea was quickly rejected by Guhan. Trying to trick people with makeup was too insincere. Ju Yu only needed one look at the dress and the OP to understand everything. Next, Xian suggested Lu Yin to undergo a sex change operation. With the help of advanced technology, it would only take a day for Lu Yin to fully recover. By then, Lu Yin would completely transform into Lu Shihua. There wouldn't be any flaws in his disguise. However, this idea was still rejected by Guhan. Sex change could indeed change one's appearance, but it couldn't change one's DNA. As long as Ju Yu was careful, he would still be able to discover Lu Yin's true identity. The meticulous Ju Yu didn't forget to do a DNA test on Lu Shihua. He only relaxed after getting the accurate DNA results. He believed that the person in front of him was Lu Shihua. In order to cover up this last flaw, Guhan finally came up with an idea as big as a black hole: change Lu Yin and Lu Shihua's heads. Because the current DNA testing equipment only extracted tissue from a person's body, there was no DNA testing equipment that would extract DNA from a person's head. This gave Guhan the opportunity to show off. If the lower half of the body was Lu Shihua's but the head was Lu Yin's, then even the DNA testing equipment wouldn't be able to discover that Lu Shihua had changed his head. This genius idea shocked Xian. After asking the doctor carefully, Xian and Guhan confirmed that the current medical technology could indeed temporarily help 2 people change their heads. At the same time, the skin, spine, and nervous system would perfectly fuse together. At least on the surface, no one would be able to tell that the 2 had changed their heads. Since only part of the human body was fusing together, the operation was very fast. It would take at most 2 hours to complete the head change. In fact, this operation could even be done directly in the med bay. Reconnecting the head and the body was easy, but the real problem was the rejection reaction between the 2 bodies. This was a problem that even modern black technology could not solve. Although it could be temporarily suppressed with drugs, the huge rejection reaction could still completely destroy the reconnected head and body in a short period of time. Ordinary people would not be able to hold on for more than 10 minutes before dying from the intense rejection reaction. Fortunately, Lu Shihua and Lu Yin were siblings, so they shared some of their DNA. Therefore, the reaction was not as intense as that of a normal person. Under the suppression of the drug, they could maintain a safe period of about an hour. During this 1-hour period, no one would be able to tell that there was anything wrong with their appearance. Of course, after switching bodies, Lu Yin couldn't control his sister's body properly. He couldn't even walk and move normally. Lu Shihua played the role of a captured prisoner. Throughout the entire process, there were powerful swordsmen holding Lu Shihua down, then inflicting some external injuries on Lu Shihua's body. This way, no matter how abnormal Lu Shihua's body was, Ju Yu would only think that Lu Shihua's body was seriously injured. How could he possibly think that Lu Shihua's head had actually been changed? Now that things had progressed to this point, the next mission was Xian and the Great Sun Sword Immortals. After Lu Shihua appeared, Xian and the Great Sun Sword Immortal had to trick Ju Yu into Lu Shihua's body within an hour. Otherwise, if the rejection became too strong, they would have to cut off their necks and switch bodies. Otherwise, Lu Shihua and Lu Yin's lives would be in danger. Fortunately, Xian and the Great Sun Sword Immortal were able to accomplish their mission. Ju Yu might be well versed in modern technology, but he still had the mindset of an ancient person. He didn't expect Lu Shihua to be able to change his head. In the end, he fell into Jiyu Han and Xian's trap and died. Looking at the whole process, although Gu Han and Xian came up with the plan together, the real heroes were Lu Shihua and Lu Yin. When normal people heard that Gu Han wanted them to switch bodies, their first reaction would be to think that Gu Han was crazy. They would never agree to such a ridiculous request. Just like Gu Han yesterday, he would rather start a massacre in Yangjing than give up his life. But when Gu Han told Lu Shihua his plan, Lu Shihua agreed without hesitation. At the same time, she helped her brother convince him to switch bodies. Only then did the plan go smoothly. Otherwise, if Lu Shihua wasn't willing and delayed for a day or two, Juyu would definitely be suspicious. At that time, the plan wouldn't go so smoothly. So Gu Han and the Great Sun Sword Immortal had already discussed it. When Lu Shihua and Lu Yin woke up, they would give all the credit to Lu Shihua. Gu Han wouldn't take any credit himself. Or rather, they would use the lives of the 1699 people to make up for it. Gu Han, if your plan fails, if Juyu discovers the truth that Lu Shihua isn't the real Lu Shihua, what will you do? When everyone was in a state of follow-up work, Liuyan Ling suddenly pulled Gu Han to a secluded corner and whispered to Gu Han, "If Juyu finds out the truth, I'll immediately jump out of the void and destroy the core of the creature's brain. That should be able to temporarily remove Juyu's absolute control over the creature's brain, and the part of the soul that is being controlled will be able to escape. What about the remaining part? Then treat it as if they gave up their lives for the great cause of humanity, just like how you killed the 1699 people without hesitation. You can think of it that way. Then, if the power of laws in Lu Yin's brain can't kill Juyu, and Juyu really takes over his brain, what will you do then?" Liuyan Ling wasn't willing to let Gu Han go so easily. She then hypothesized an even more terrifying possibility. "I will immediately crush Lu Yin's brain, kill Juyu, and return the body to Lu Shihua." Gu Han answered. "Then doesn't that mean Lu Yin will die with him?" Liuyan Ling's expression was one of shock. "Yes. He died for humanity, a worthy death," Gu Han said calmly. Hearing Gu Han's answer, Liuyan Ling felt a chill run down her spine. "But, if you aren't willing to die for humanity, what right do you have to ask Lu Yin to give up his life for humanity? Being weak is a sin." Gu Han sighed, "Because I am strong enough, I have the ability to reject the violence that tries to inflict on me. If Lu Yin is strong enough, he also has the right to reject all of this. Otherwise, he will only be at the mercy of the strong." Liuyan Ling was silent for a while. "What if it's me? If one day I face the same situation as Lu Yin, will you kill me without hesitation?" "I won't." Gu Han didn't hesitate and pulled Liuyan Ling into his arms. "Even if the sun and the moon are reversed, the ocean is reversed, and time is reversed, I will definitely save you. You will always be by my side. This is also the right of the strong." While Gu Han was waiting for Lu Shihua to wake up from the medical pod, the recovery of the human souls was also progressing in an orderly manner. Without Juyu's control, the biological brain entered a state of freedom. The staff of the research institute all went online and began to guide the remaining souls trapped in the biological brain offline. The entire process was carried out in an orderly manner. In a short period of time, a large number of souls returned to their original bodies and reunited with their loved ones. The first major crisis in human history caused by a game seemed to have come to an end. But in the end, something unexpected happened. The staff responsible for guiding the souls in the online game reported to the Great Sun Sword Immortal that a portion of the souls were trapped in a certain instance and could not be guided out of the game. As for the staff who tried to enter the instance, they completely lost contact with them after entering the instance. They were also trapped in the game and became new victims. When the final count was done, there were about 4 million souls trapped in the instance. No matter how hard the staff in the control room tried, they could not release these souls. This discovery caused the entire control room to become extremely nervous. All the staff members were desperately trying to figure out what was going on inside. However, the biological computer dungeon was like a sturdy city. No matter how hard the staff attacked, they could not even open a crack in the city. They had no idea what was going on in the dungeon, let alone a way to save the trapped people. Just when everyone was at their wits' end, Ji Han, who was watching from the side, suddenly asked, "Where's Tomono Kid? Did Tomono Kakaze not appear?" "No." Shen replied bitterly. In reality, he had been paying attention to Tomono Kakaze's situation. After all, Tomono Kakaze was a soul he raised. Like a daughter, Shen cared about Tomono Kakaze the most. But just like the souls trapped in the fortress, Tomono Kakaze had also completely lost contact with them. If the worst-case scenario was considered, then Tomono Kakaze might have been killed by Juyu's soul. Tomono Kakaze was already dead. There's no other way. If it really doesn't work, we can only break this instance with hardware. Shen sighed. This was the last solution everyone could think of. No matter how powerful a software was, it still needed hardware to support it. Even a terrifying instance was built on the foundation of a living creature's brain. Right now, humans had already located the area in the living creature's brain. As long as they completely removed that area of the living creature's brain and cut off the connection with the living creature's brain, they could destroy the entire instance with hardware. This was a relatively labor-saving method. As for whether the trapped souls could successfully escape after destroying the living creature's brain, this was something even Shen could not give an answer to. After all, the souls were trapped in a small piece of the living creature's brain. Only God knew if they could return to their own bodies alive. Chapter 1295. Dean, there's a huge discovery. Just when the situation had become hopeless, a staff member in charge of monitoring the entire game suddenly said excitedly. But his excitement only lasted for a few seconds, and there was a faint sound of sobbing. "What's wrong? Why are you crying?" Shen asked calmly when he saw the staff member crying. "It's Shu Yang. Shu Yang used his life to send this news." Sob, sob, sob. The staff member could no longer suppress the pain in his heart, and started crying loudly. Shu Yang? Wasn't he trapped in that dungeon and unable to come out? How did he die? Great Sun Sword Immortal said in disbelief. But as a document was passed to him, Great Sun Sword Immortal let out a long sigh, revealing a sorrowful expression. The document was finally passed to Guhan. Guhan took a look and finally understood what was going on. It turned out that Shu Yang was a researcher at the research center. He had re-entered the game immediately after Juyu's death and started guiding the souls trapped in the game away. He was also the first to discover the dungeon fortress that trapped millions of souls. In the end, in order to unravel the mystery of the dungeon, Shu Yang charged into the dungeon without hesitation. He cut off all contact with the outside world and was unable to leave the dungeon again. It had been almost 10 hours since then. Just as everyone thought Shu Yang's soul was trapped in the dungeon, the surveillance showed that a soul fragment rushed out of the dungeon fortress, and then quickly returned to Shu Yang's body. Everyone hurriedly came to Shu Yang's side, and found that he was still in a vegetative state. But his fingers were constantly tapping in a rhythm. The researchers quickly realized that Shu Yang's tapping rhythm should be Morse code. He wanted to use this method to send a message. So the researchers quickly began to decipher this Morse code, and finally came up with these words. Emperor Sword Dungeon. Miss is alive. Poseidon. It was a pity that Shu Yang had only managed to send a few words. After those words were sent, Shu Yang passed away. He had completely stopped breathing and sacrificed himself at his post. Even the most advanced medical technology could not save him. According to the analysis afterward, Shu Yang had used some kind of method to forcibly leave the dungeon, but this also caused Shu Yang's soul to suffer fatal damage. Relying on his obsession to forcibly return to his body, he reported the information he had to the research institute through Morse code. Unfortunately, what Shu Yang brought back was only his obsession and a little bit of his soul fragment. This little bit of soul fragment could not last for too long, so Shu Yang only left behind a few words before he was forever sacrificed. Look. This was the difference between people. What a good boy. He sacrificed his life for the future of mankind. Fleeting Time Lin, who was sitting beside Ji Han, could not help but sigh after reading Shu Yang's story. However, no matter how you looked at it, it sounded like she was talking to Guhan, who was beside her. He really is a good boy. Guhan nodded. He has made a great contribution to humanity. I will suggest that all 8 base cities build a statue of him in the city center at the same time. At the same time, we will design a special dungeon for him in the game to honor this hero who sacrificed himself for humanity. This is really a generous treatment. Liuyan Ling deliberately dragged out the word generous. The sarcasm in her words was obvious. For a normal person, this is indeed a generous treatment. There is nothing to be sarcastic about. Guhan smiled. At this point, Guhan's personal terminal suddenly rang. It was a call from Song Hammer's parents. In the call, Song Hammer's parents told Guhan that everyone else who was trapped in the game had come back alive. Only Song Hammer and his sword women were still trapped in the game. In the call, Song Hammer's parents begged Guhan in a hoarse voice, hoping that he could use Guhan's privileges to save Song Hammer. These 2 grief-stricken old people did not know that even the most privileged human in the world could not save Song Hammer. Song Hammer was Guhan's childhood friend. Song Hammer's parents also bore part of the responsibility of raising Guhan. If it were not for Song Hammer's parents' help, Guhan would have become a homeless child in the slums. He would not have achieved what he had today. Tens of millions of people knelt before Guhan and begged Guhan to save their loved ones. Guhan could turn a blind eye. However, when these 2 old men begged for Ji Yuhan's help, Ji Yuhan had no choice but to agree. Moreover, Ji Yuhan could not ignore Song Hammer's life. Sigh. Guhan sighed. He stood up and walked to Great Sun Sword Immortal and Chu Xian. He held the information in his hands and asked, "What do you 2 think about this information?" Chu Xian and Great Sun Sword Immortal were stunned. They looked at Guhan, their mouths twitching, but they did not say anything in the end. "If you are not willing to say it, I will say it." Guhan smiled and said, "This Emperor Sword Instance Dungeon is probably the instance dungeon that trapped the remaining souls. And in the entire game, there is probably only one Emperor Sword Instance Dungeon that is waiting to be activated. Coincidentally, this instance dungeon is activated by my account, Military Governor. Now, this instance dungeon's guiding mission is still with me." Miss is probably talking about Tomono Kakaze. This means that Tomono Kakaze did not die, but is also trapped in this instance dungeon. Finally, he mentioned Poseidon, which is me. This matches the first condition. This means that I need to solve the mystery of this instance dungeon. Finally, looking at it from a comprehensive point of view. If I want to save the millions of souls trapped in this instance dungeon, I'll have to make a trip to the game myself and complete this Emperor Sword instance dungeon. Only then will there be a chance of survival for these souls and Mosakozu Tomina. This is a very simple guess. It is impossible for the 2 of you not to guess the meaning of this sentence. Why did the 2 of you not take the initiative to find me? Guhan said all the hidden information in one breath. Can't you guess why we are not speaking? Great Sun Sword Immortal rolled his eyes at Guhan. This instance dungeon is filled with danger. Once you enter, you may not be able to come out. Since you can disregard the lives of tens of millions of people, why would you care about the remaining millions? Moreover, these millions of people are indeed not as important as a future Emperor Sword wielder. When the time comes, we only need to say that these millions of people's lives were sacrificed to save tens of millions of lives. I believe the people will not blame us. This matter can be resolved perfectly. Your Majesty, there is no need for you to enter the game and risk your life. Just let it all go. Great Sun Sword Immortal said directly. That's right. Great Sun Sword Immortal, you are right. If these millions of people really have nothing to do with me, then they die. It's no big deal. Guhan said calmly. It's a pity that the souls here are not completely unrelated to me. In reality, there are very important friends of mine. Your Majesty's friends are also trapped in the instance dungeon? Great Sun Sword Immortal was shocked. Tomono Kakaze. Guhan smiled bitterly, then said with determination, I promised Tomono Kakaze in the game that I would protect her safety for the rest of my life and be her best friend. If I can't even save a friend's life, then I, Guhan, am not fit to be Poseidon. Guhan. Hearing Guhan's words, not only was Great Sun Sword Immortal deeply moved, even the cold-faced Chu Xian at the side was moved. Although his expression was not very emotional, He patted Guhan's shoulder hard and said calmly, Jiyu Xuanwu left something with me. I originally did not want to give it to you, but if you can save Tomono Kakaze, then I will give it to you. There's such a thing. Guhan was shocked. Luckily he used Tomono Kakaze as an excuse and not Song Hammer. Otherwise, Xian would not have told him such an important thing. Xian was Kunzu's strategist. He fought side by side with Kunzu 1,000 years ago. There was no way he wouldn't know Jiyu Xuanwu, who was related to Kunzu. So it was natural that Jiyu Xuanwu would pass something to him through Xian. On the other hand, this Xian, since Jiyu Xuanwu wanted him to bring the item to him, he hid it from him. If it wasn't for him using the fragrant wind intellect to move him, he would have kept Jiyu Xuanwu's item from him forever. Even if he died, he wouldn't know of its existence. It could be imagined that since this thing was something that Jiyu Xuanwu specially asked Xian to give to him, it must be very important to him. It might be an important tool to unravel many mysteries of the past and future. If he lost this thing, Guhan would not have a place to cry even if he cried. Thinking of this, Jiyu Han's gaze towards Xian became a little special and a little sharp. I know what you're thinking. Xian stared at Guhan, don't hate me. If this thing is beneficial to you, I will naturally give it to you. But I'm afraid that this thing will not only not benefit you, but will also make you lose yourself in the future. Originally, I definitely wouldn't have mentioned this matter to you, especially after seeing you slaughter ordinary people. However, since you're willing to take the risk for Masakaze Tomono today, I've changed my opinion of you. I'll hand this thing over to you. Perhaps it will have a positive effect. Master. Just as Xian and Guhan were talking, Lu Shihua's weak voice came from behind Guhan. Chapter 1296. Shihua. Your body is weak. You need to rest. Guhan hurriedly pressed Lu Shihua, who had just crawled out of the medical pod, back onto the chair. Master, I'm fine. The one who's not fine is my little brother. My little brother's soul hasn't returned. Lu Shihua said anxiously to Guhan. Guhan was stunned. Are you sure your little brother's soul isn't in his body? Of course. I'm his biological sister. I can feel it. My little brother's body is only a shell. His soul isn't here. Lu Shihua said anxiously. It seems like there's still a flaw in my plan. Guhan smiled helplessly. It seems like Lu Yin's soul had already left his body when Juyu was possessing him. What? Will my little brother's life be in danger? Lu Shihua became even more anxious after hearing Guhan's words. That won't happen. I can guarantee that your little brother's soul is still alive. Otherwise, your little brother's body would immediately lose all signs of life and become a dead man. There's no physical body in this world that can survive the destruction of a soul. Your little brother's soul must still be somewhere. It's most likely in the game. But after clearing the dungeon 3 times, all the souls have left the game. If your little brother's soul is still there, he should have returned. Could it be that your little brother's soul? Guhan said in a low voice. It seemed like Juyu had thrown Lu Yin's soul into the game when he took over Lu Yin's body, and Lu Yin's soul somehow entered the dungeon. That was why the staff in the game couldn't find Lu Yin's soul from the beginning to the end. Master, my little brother died for. Lu Shihua looked at Guhan with tears in his eyes. The meaning behind his words was self-evident. Lu Yin had taken a huge risk and sacrificed himself to defeat Juyu. Guhan had to take responsibility for Lu Yin's life. Sigh, now there was another reason for Guhan to enter the dungeon. Guhan had no choice but to enter. Yuzhang City is empty. This is the first time I've seen this, Guhan said as he looked at his surroundings after entering the game. It had been half a year since Guhan last logged into the game. No matter which time he entered the game, Yuzhang City was always bustling with activity. There was an endless stream of people walking through every corner of Yuzhang City. The city in the game was never quiet. When he entered the game, the entire Yuzhang City seemed to have become a ghost town. There was not a single person in sight on the huge streets. What was strange was that all the shops on both sides of the street were open for business. All the equipment, lights, kitchens, and other facilities in each shop were operating normally. However, there was not a single person in these shops. In order to facilitate the search for lost souls in the game, after regaining control of the game officials made all the NPCs and Yuan Ku in the game offline. However, the equipment in these shops did not have time to be turned off. Hence, this extremely strange scene appeared. Master. Lu Shihua stuck close to Jiyu Han's back in fear. This strange scene made Lu Shihua instinctively afraid. Ahem. Both of you, pay attention to your image. Liuyan Ling appeared beside Guhan. The three of them formed the main force of Guhan's dungeon challenge this time. According to Jiyu Han's plan, he could enter the game by himself. There was no need for Lu Shihua and Fleeting Ling to enter the game. However, Lu Shihua firmly said that she had to save her brother with her own hands. Liuyan Ling said that she could not let Guhan be the only one in the limelight. She wanted to be in the limelight as well. In this regard, Guhan did not insist after a few simple words of advice. This was the path they had chosen. Guhan would not stop them. According to the information found by Xu Yang and the staff, the entrance to the dungeon is near the Hongdian studio in Jinhua, Zhejiang. Guhan said to Lu Shihua and Liuyan Ling, Master, why is the entrance to the dungeon there? Lu Shihua asked curiously. You don't even know this. Liuyan Ling said before Guhan could answer. In the real world, Hongdian Studio is the biggest stronghold of the Heavenly Court in the human world. The only entrance to the Heavenly Court is located in Hongdian Studio. If we want to enter the Annihilate the Heavenly Court dungeon, we have to go through that entrance. In Xu Yang's information, he entered the dungeon through that entrance. Liuyan Ling said quickly, all right. We will explain these things later. We need to go to Hongdian Studio immediately. Guhan clapped his hands rhythmically. Then, Xian's voice resounded throughout the city. Are you ready? Senior Xian, we are ready. Please teleport us directly to Hongdian Studio. Guhan replied. I wish you all the best. Xian's voice disappeared. Guhan and the others felt their vision go black. When they saw light again, they were already in a luxurious, classical Chinese-style building. Originally, it would take Guhan and the others at least half a day to get to Hongdian Studio from Yuzhong City by public transport. However, this was a game, a half-closed game with no players. Xian had the highest control of the game, so teleporting across the entire map was a piece of cake. With a thought from Xian, Guhan and the others teleported to the entrance of the dungeon. I've long heard that Hongdian Studio is the most well-preserved and beautifully built place in the entire Yanghuang continent. I've long wanted to visit this place in the real world. I didn't expect to be one step ahead of me in the game, Guhan said with a sigh. Hongdian Studio was Heavenly Court's largest stronghold. A large number of Heavenly Court's Yuan Ku lived there. Different from other Yuan Ku's forces which were a mix of humans and beasts, Heavenly Court's Yuan Ku were intelligent beasts. They needed a good living environment. Not only would they not destroy the surrounding buildings, but they would also repair them from time to time. The Heavenly Court had been in the Hongdian Film City for more than 900 years. The entire illusion was naturally created by the Heavenly Court. There were pavilions everywhere, carved dragons and painted rafters. Under the lingering immortal qi, it was like a real Heavenly Court. Under normal circumstances, Hongdian Film City would spawn countless powerful prime bandits. Even Emperor Sword level players in the game would not be able to move freely in Hongdian Film City, much less approach the entrance of the dimensional rift that led to the Heavenly Court that was protected by Hongdian Film City. However, all of the Yuan Ku had been spawned by the game. Hongdian Studio was also empty. Guhan and the others could enjoy the beautiful scenery of Hongdian Studio while strolling quietly in this important stronghold of Yuan Ku. Finally, they arrived at the center of Hongdian Studio, Qin Imperial Palace. From the incomplete historical records of the Great Calamity era, one could vaguely learn that this Hongdian Film City was originally a small mountain village. Later on, for the sake of filming the movie Jing Ku Assassinates the Qin Emperor, a film crew had built a large-scale ancient building in this small mountain village, the Qin Imperial Palace. With Qin Imperial Palace as the core, Hongdian Film City gradually developed into a large-scale film and television base with more than a dozen special buildings. It was provided to all the production teams in the country for free. Hongdian Film City also relied on the stars of these production teams to attract a large number of tourists, earning a lot of money. It was a win-win situation for both sides. P.S. The first scenic area of Hongdian Studio was Guangzhou Street, built for the filming of Opium War. Qin Imperial Palace was built in the second year. The dimensional gap that led to Heavenly Court was in Qin Imperial Palace. However, the entrance was not in the most important palace of Qin Imperial Palace, the unification of the Four Seas Hall. It was in an inconspicuous horse field beside the unification of the Four Seas Hall. This horse field was originally used to perform the Qin Imperial Palace's classic equestrian performance, the martial arts exhibition of the Eight Banners. Don't ask why the Qin Imperial Palace would perform something from the Qing dynasty. You'd have to ask the managers of Hongdian Studio. In any case, before the Great Destruction, there would be equestrian stuntmen performing the martial arts exhibition of the Eight Banners 3 times. However, as time passed, this horse field was no longer a martial arts field. Instead, it became a public square. In the middle of the public square, there was a new altar. On top of the altar was the door that led to Heavenly Court. Without any obstructions, Guhan and the others arrived in front of the door. Looking at the shining door, Guhan looked at Lu Shihua and Liuyan Ling beside him. You two have to think this through. Once you follow me into this door, you will have no chance of escaping before we clear this instance dungeon. In fact, you might end up like the millions of souls, trapped in this instance dungeon forever, Guhan said solemnly. Guhan, since when did you become so wishy-washy? Liuyan Ling rolled her eyes at Guhan and led the way into the door. She sure is impatient. Guhan smiled wryly. Without saying anything else, he grabbed Lu Shihua's hand and disappeared into the door. System notification. Player Military Governor, welcome to the Exterminate Heavenly Court Instance Dungeon. The first quest for the Exterminate Heavenly Court is to steal the Peach Tree of Immortality. System notification. Quest 1 has been updated. Steal the trunk of a 5,000-year-old peach tree from the Queen Mother of the West's Peach Garden in the Heavenly Court. After completing the quest, you may enter the King Arthur's Betrayal Instance Dungeon. Find Lu Ban to receive the quest reward and accept the next part of the quest. This is Yuzhang City. When Guhan and Liuyan Ling saw the world around them, they were shocked to find that they had returned to Yuzhang City. Not to mention, it was a bustling city filled with players. Chapter 1297. These are not NPCs. They are all real players. Liuyan Ling looked around at the players in Yuzhang City and frowned. Their expressions are very normal. There is nothing unusual about them. They don't look like souls trapped in a dungeon. How could this be? There's no need to guess blindly. We'll know once we ask. Guhan brought Lu Shihua and Liuyan Ling to a tea house and found many players drinking tea in the tea house. Guhan picked a player who was dressed shabbily and served the worst tea. The player had the name Ouyang Josha above his head. He threw a 10,000 yuan bill on the table and said, "Brother, I want to ask you a few things." "No problem. No problem." The player immediately put the 10,000 yuan into his wallet carefully. He then smiled at Guhan and said, "I don't know what you want to ask, sir. As long as it's something I know, I will tell you everything I know." "You don't know me?" At that moment, the name Military Governor above Guhan's head was particularly eye-catching. Moreover, this Ouyang Josha had met the Military Governor a few times. It was unexpected that this player did not know Guhan at all. Hee. You must be a famous big shot. How could a lowly junior like me know you, sir? Ouyang Josha said with a charming smile. "Oh." Guhan responded with an "oh." It seemed that the player could not see the two big words Military Governor above his head. This was very strange. Why could he see it but these players could not? The weather is so good today. Aren't you going to fight a dungeon? Guhan squinted his eyes and asked. Dungeon? What dungeon? Ouyang Josha's face showed an inexplicable expression. What is a dungeon? Is it something in an online game? I'm sorry, sir. I don't play online games. Haven't you played Sword Maiden Online? Sword Maiden Online? I've never heard of it before. Is it a new game? I'm sorry, I really don't know much about games. Moreover, look at me. I don't have the money to play games, Ouyang Josha said with a bitter smile. What year is it now? Guhan's eyebrows furrowed even more. That's easy. Of course it's January 12th, 3012. But why are you asking this, sir? Can't you just look at your personal terminal? Ouyang Josha's expression became even more puzzled. What about Sword Maiden? Do you know about Sword Maiden? Sword Maiden? Is it the mobile game that kids play, firing cannons and shouting I'm the commander? Ouyang Ji pursed his lips. Oh, right, you can't be talking about Sword Immortals, right? I know everything about Sword Immortals. Ji Yuhan was speechless. After some communication, Guhan finally had some understanding of this dungeon world. This was a world that was completely different from the normal world and the game world. The memories of the players here seemed to have been tampered with. The players in this world had forgotten about sword maidens and sword bearers. They didn't know about Sword Maiden Online. Even Yuan Ku didn't know about it. This was a completely Xianxia world. According to Ouyang Josha, this dungeon world was divided into two worlds, the human world and the immortal world. The human world had its own government, but the human world's government was controlled by the immortal world's heavenly court. All the senior officials, including the president, were under the command of the heavenly court. The human world had no control. There were immortals in the immortal world, and they often came to the lower realm to play. If they were in a good mood, they would take in one or two mortals as their disciples or take some beauties as their immortal slaves. But if the immortals were in a bad mood, they would wantonly kill in the mortal world. Of course, the immortal world strictly forbade this kind of killing. Hence, there were sword maidens patrolling the human world. If they found any immortals who dared to kill, they would immediately capture them. Besides the immortals, there were also the demon clan in this world that wantonly killed humans. These sword maidens also had the responsibility of protecting humans from the demon clan. All in all, the heavenly court in this world had become a good person who was responsible for the safety of the entire world. It was no longer Yuan Ku, who was hated by humans in the real world. What do we do now? Liuyan Ling asked Guhan after coming out of the tea house and receiving the information. What else can we do? Of course, we'll follow the quest instructions and complete the first requirement of this Emperor Sword quest. Guhan said calmly. But this world has become like this. How would we know where the Peach Garden is? And will the King Arthur's Betrayal Instance dungeon still be at the original Xianyang City Airport? Liuyan Ling asked worriedly. Of course it's there, Guhan said with absolute certainty. How can you be so sure? Liuyan Ling did not understand. Don't tell me you've forgotten that we obtained an Emperor Sword level dungeon strategy from Yin-Yang Gate. Ji Yuhan said calmly. I remember now. Liuyan Ling looked as if she had suddenly realized something. However, she immediately became terrified. Could it be that the strategy for this Emperor Sword instance dungeon was recorded in the small booklet that was left over 1,000 years ago? That's right. Guhan nodded. In fact, the small booklet briefly mentioned the background story of the instance dungeon. The background of this instance dungeon is a world that is completely controlled by the heavenly court. The final goal of the instance dungeon is to kill the Jade Emperor in the heavenly court and release all humans. This is the quest to reveal the truth of the entire world. Compare it carefully. Isn't the world described in the small booklet the world in this instance dungeon? Guhan said faintly. But isn't that the small booklet that was left there at the beginning of the apocalypse? It's been over 1,000 years. How did the owner of the small booklet know about the strategy for this instance dungeon? Moreover, Jiyu Xuanwu, Elder Jiyu Xuanwu doesn't even know about the situation of this instance dungeon. This small booklet couldn't have been left there by Elder Jiyu Xuanwu. The more Liuyan Ling thought about it, the more terrified she became. Who could have left this small booklet there? Maybe it was written by you. Guhan looked at Liuyan Ling meaningfully. If we can successfully pass through this instance dungeon, you will definitely understand this instance dungeon very well. It's only natural that you would write this small booklet in the future. Even if I wrote this small booklet in the future, How did I send it to 1,000 years ago? As Liuyan Ling said this, she suddenly paused. You mean, at some point in the future, I will also travel to the era of 1,000 years ago? It might not be you. Gu Han nodded and then shook his head. Anyone who has experienced this instance dungeon, such as me, Lu Shihua, and the tens of thousands of player souls in this instance dungeon. However, all of these players have lost their minds and memories. Even if they are rescued in the future, they won't be able to clearly understand the strategy one used to complete the quest. I'm afraid the only ones who can participate in the entire quest dungeon are the three of us. So, among the three of us, one or two or even all three of us might travel to the past. The one with the highest possibility is me, Gu Han said. Why? Why do you think you have the highest possibility? Liuyan Ling asked, puzzled. Because I have some unfinished ties in the past. Gu Han let out a long sigh. He thought of Yi Qing. He would most likely have to travel to the past to complete this unfinished relationship with Yi Qing. Hearing Gu Han's words, Liuyan Ling suddenly became interested and asked curiously, what kind of ties? I can't tell you. Gu Han shook his head and answered firmly. Sigh. Didn't you say you like me? Is there anything that we can't talk about? Fleeting Time Lin was displeased by Yi Ci's words. Okay. If you agree to marry me now, I'll tell you everything. Ji Yu Han's reaction was swift, and she immediately countered Fleeting Time's words. Of course, Liuyan Ling would not agree to marry Gu Han. The two of them instantly fell into silence, leaving Lu Shihua awkwardly walking behind the two of them. Lu Shihua felt like he was unnecessary. You can't go out. When Gu Han and the other two arrived at the gate of Yuzhang City and were about to leave the city, they were stopped by a few guards at the gate. Because these guards carried all kinds of sword maidens on their backs, Gu Han was sure that these guards were actually sword bearers. However, these sword bearers were different from normal sword bearers. They did not put their sword maidens in their scabbards, but instead carried them on their backs. At the same time, all the sword maidens were in the form of sword maidens. None of the sword bearers were released. Why don't you let us go out? Seeing that she was stopped, Liuyan Ling asked angrily. Why? Don't you know how dangerous it is outside? There are magical beasts running amok everywhere. Ordinary humans like you are not even enough to feed the magical beasts. Just stay in the city obediently. There will be delicious food and drinks. Why do you have to go out and die? The guard at the gate said disdainfully. What? What happened? Who is making a ruckus here? At this time, Gu Han suddenly heard a very familiar voice. Then, a slightly wretched-looking man walked to Gu Han's side. Greetings, Captain. Seeing this man appear, the guards at the gate immediately said respectfully, there are 3 ungrateful people who want to leave the city, but we stopped them. Is that so? The captain looked at Gu Han disdainfully. You want to leave the city with such cowardly looks? Hurry up and go home to drink some milk. Ha ha ha. After saying that, the captain began to laugh wildly. I say, Toad, you are getting bolder and bolder. You actually dare to mock me. Gu Han sneered, then punched the captain's nose. Chapter 1298. How dare you hit me? Song Hammer looked at Gu Han in disbelief. He did not think that an ordinary human would dare to hit him. Without a word, he raised his fist and was about to fight back. How could Song Hammer be a match for Gu Han? Before his fist could land on Gu Han, his stomach took a few hooks from Gu Han. It was so painful that Song Hammer's nose became crooked. Of course, if Gu Han had not shown mercy, Song Hammer's stomach would have been smashed by Gu Han. How dare you all? Are you trying to rebel? Brothers, let's attack together. Seeing their captain being beaten, the surrounding soldiers could not take it anymore. They pulled out their sword maidens and prepared to attack Gu Han. No. You are not allowed to use your immortal swords. Unexpectedly, Song Hammer actually stopped these guards. He gritted his teeth and said, Brothers, if we have to use celestial swords to deal with an ordinary person, then we'll be too useless. Let's teach him a lesson with our fist. Song Hammer's words surprised Gu Han. Gu Han did not expect Song Hammer to be so magnanimous. Shihua, I'll teach you. Show me what master taught you. But you are not allowed to use your sword, maidens. Guhan could not be bothered to fight with these small fries, so he handed the task of dealing with them to Lu Shihua. Yes, master. Lu Shihua accepted Guhan's order with a smile on his face. Then, he began to fight with the soldiers. Although Lu Shihua had not learned any fist techniques, he had been immersed in the way of the sword for a long time. It was not difficult for him to apply the principles of the sword to fist techniques. Therefore, in a few minutes, all the soldiers were defeated by Lu Shihua's fist. This is bad, Guhan. There seems to be a large number of sword-bearers rushing over from the city. Liuyan Ling, who was watching from the side, suddenly pointed to the other side of the road and said. At the same time, Guhan could clearly see that there were no less than 50 sword-bearers rushing over. Once these sword-bearers joined the battle and used the sword mistress, Guhan would have a hard time dealing with them. These sword-bearers were the souls of real sword-bearers in the real world. If both sides were to fight for real, who knew if Ji Han would be able to kill these sword-bearers' souls in battle? Would they still be able to revive and return to the real world? We can't fight with these sword-bearers. Open the void door directly. We must leave immediately. Guhan immediately said to Liuyan Ling. Liuyan Ling nodded and immediately opened the void door. Shihua, hurry up and go in. Guhan urged Lu Shihua into the void door. Then, he grabbed Song Hammer, who was rubbing his stomach on the ground, and the four of them disappeared into the void door together. These humans actually have the ability to open the void. With the disappearance of the void door, the team of swordbearers also arrived at the scene late. After questioning the team members who had fallen on the ground, they finally understood what had happened here. Captain, isn't opening the void something that only the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals in the Heavenly Court can do? Why are there only a few ordinary people? After listening to the whole story, one of the team members said in confusion, "Shut up." The captain scolded his team member. "Don't you know that the big shots in the Heavenly Court occasionally like to go down to the mortal world to travel? We might have met a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal in the Heavenly Court. Let me tell you, today's incident never happened. None of you are allowed to say a word, or else if you make that Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal unhappy, all of you will be destroyed." But Captain Chen, our Captain Song Hammer was captured by a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. Will he be in danger? One of Song Hammer's team members asked worriedly. That's hard to say. The captain smiled. Maybe our Captain Toad caught the eye of that Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal and wants to take him as a disciple. That's his luck. But if he doesn't catch the eye and becomes a target, that's also his luck. Anyway, I will report what happened today to the Immortal Monarch. You are not allowed to say a word to your subordinates. Otherwise, you will have to bear the consequences. After saying this, the whole incident was suppressed just like that. In order to exert his full strength, Shen used his authority to copy Guhan, Liuyan Ling, and Lu Shihua's real strength into the game. Now, in the game, Liuyan Ling was already a sword immortal level swordbearer. Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. Are you guys Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal? After being released from the Gate of Void, Song Hammer no longer cared about the pain in his abdomen. He hugged Liuyan Ling's thigh and asked excitedly, "What Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal? I don't know. Let go of me." Liuyan Ling's eyes were red from Song Hammer's hug. She wanted to kick Song Hammer away. Guhan immediately stopped her. "Are you kidding me? If Liuyan Ling kicked Song Hammer now, Song Hammer would lose half his life. His Song Hammer, my childhood friend. You better take it easy," Ji Han said with a smile. "He is the childhood friend you want to save this time?" Liuyan Ling was stunned. She didn't dare to kick him with all her strength. She could only give him a light kick. As a result, the light kick sent Song Hammer flying more than 10 meters away. He fell heavily on the ground and screamed, "Toad! You really don't recognize me?" Guhan walked to Song Hammer's side. He took out a bottle of blood medicine from his dimensional pocket and fed it to Song Hammer's mouth. "What's going on? Why don't I feel pain immediately?" After Guhan's bottle of blood medicine entered his stomach, Song Hammer immediately felt the pain in his body disappear. It was as if his whole body had returned to its best state. "I understand now. This is an elixir." Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. This must be the legendary elixir, right? Song Hammer said excitedly. Just think of it as an elixir, Guhan said helplessly. How was this an elixir? It was just the most common bottle of blood medicine used in the game for healing. However, from Song Hammer's reaction, the blood medicine could still be used in this dungeon world. In addition, the previous void gate could also be opened smoothly. In this case, the basic rules of this dungeon world had not changed. All the props and swordbearer's abilities in the game could still be used in this dungeon world. This was a rare piece of good news. This meant that this dungeon world had only changed for some special reason, but the whole world should still be under the control of the main program. As long as the rules of the game had not changed, Guhan was confident that he could clear this dungeon world. For a long time, Guhan tried to restore Song Hammer's memory. However, Guhan used all the methods he could think of to restore Song Hammer's memory, but Song Hammer still could not recall his real identity and memory. He still thought that he was a heavenly soldier captain of the Fire Thunder Palace under the immortal realm and a true immortal. In the end, Guhan had no choice but to temporarily give up on restoring Song Hammer's memory. Instead, he followed Song Hammer's words and admitted that he and Lu Shihua were celestial immortals, while Liuyan Ling was a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal who played games. However, Guhan also learned a lot of information from Song Hammer that the mortal Ouyang did not know. For example, the immortals in the immortal realm were divided into 6 levels: Immortal Emperor, Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal, Celestial Immortal, True Immortal, Itinerant Immortal, and Half Immortal. One did not need to think to know that these 6 levels must correspond to the 6 levels of ancient swords, treasure swords, famous swords, spiritual swords, immortal swords, and emperor swords. Song Hammer also said that the Heavenly Court had a total of 8 immortal emperors and 3 sect masters, as well as dozens of Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals. There were also countless Heaven Immortals and True Immortals. They were so powerful that they were unparalleled. Song Hammer's words made Ji Yuhan frown deeply. If what Song Hammer said was true, and there were really 8 immortal emperors in the immortal world that were equivalent to Emperor Sword level swordbearers, then Ji Yuhan would not be able to complete his mission. This was simply sending him to his death. Forget it. Let's not think about this for now. It's more important to complete the mission step by step. Ji Yuhan was never a person who was obsessed with the strength of his opponents. He threw the terrifying opponents aside and turned to Song Hammer. Song Hammer, our golden immortal fleeting time sees your extraordinary talent and wants to take you in as his disciple. I wonder if you're willing to. Wait. When did I say? Hearing Guhan's words, Liuyan Ling, who was not mentally prepared, immediately became anxious. She was about to refute him, but Guhan glared at her and she could only swallow her words. I'm willing. I'm willing. I couldn't ask for more. I couldn't ask for more. When Song Hammer heard that a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal wanted to take her as a disciple, she was so happy that she almost went crazy. She immediately knelt in front of Liuyan Ling and called Liuyan Ling master while saying that she was willing. Under the pressure of Guhan's gaze, Liuyan Ling could only reluctantly accept Song Hammer as her disciple. All right. Since you are so sincere, I will reluctantly accept you as my disciple. Thank you, master. Thank you, master. Master, please bestow me with a Dharma name, Song Hammer said excitedly as she kowtowed. Dharma name? What is that? Liuyan Ling's eyes turned as she recalled a story that she had read in a novel before the apocalypse. She said, Ahum, then I will bestow you with the Dharma name Wu Neng. I hope that you can comprehend the hidden potential in your body and become a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal as soon as possible. Thank you, master. Thank you, master. Hearing this, Song Hammer was so happy that she was about to fly into the sky. She kept repeating, I have a Dharma name. I have a Dharma name. My Dharma name is Wu Neng. Ahem. Wu Neng. Do you know where the peach tree of immortality can be found in this world other than the peach tree garden? Guhan coughed and asked Song Hammer. Chapter 1299. Peach Tree of Immortality. Hearing Guhan's question, Song Hammer was stunned. Isn't that the immortal wood in the Queen Mother's peach tree garden? Master, if you want to find peach trees of immortality, You have to go to the Queen Mother's peach tree garden. How would I know where to find peach trees of immortality? Ahem. Guhan lied. Your master wants to use peach trees of immortality to make a Dharma treasure. Of course, we can't go to the Queen Mother's peach tree garden to cut down the peach trees that are still alive. We just want to find a dead peach tree. A dead peach tree of immortality? Song Hammer rolled his eyes and said hesitantly, I don't know where to find a dead peach tree of immortality, but I heard a legend. 800 years ago, when the great sage, Heaven's Equal, wreaked havoc in the heavenly palace, he stole more than 10 peach trees from the peach tree garden and planted them on Mount Huagua. Later, I heard that when he was trying to catch the demon monkey, all the peach trees of immortality were destroyed in the battle. 800 years have passed. Maybe we can find those dead peach trees on Mount Huagua. That's right. Guhan nodded. What's right? Jiu Han, don't tell me you even misunderstood the mission hint. Liuyan Ling grabbed Guhan's arm and pulled him aside. She said in a low voice, didn't your mission hint clearly say that you need to find a 5,000-year-old peach tree of immortality in the peach tree garden? If you go to Mount Huagua, won't you be going in the wrong direction? If I didn't see this guide, I would probably go to the peach tree garden directly, Guhan said. But this guide says that you only need to hand over the peach tree of immortality. The guide also states that if you choose to obtain the peach tree of immortality in other ways, you will get a side quest in the instance dungeon. At the same time, you will get a side quest reward. As for this storyline reward, it will be of great help in completing future dungeons. The strategy guide also mentioned that the location of the immortality peach trees changes randomly. You can ask the captain of the guards at the city gates about the immortality peach trees. That's why I brought you guys to trouble the guards at the city gates. I didn't expect to run into Song Hammer, Guhan said with a wry smile. No wonder. I knew it. You could have just left through the void gate, so why bother with the guards? Liuyan Ling showed an expression of understanding, but her expression immediately turned serious. She asked Guhan in a serious tone, Guhan, do you think the things in this guide are trustworthy? Could this be a trap? Are we really going to act according to the description on this guide? Liuyan Ling asked a very important question, which was to question the correctness of the strategy guide. Although there were speculations that the strategy guide was left behind by one of the 3 people who traveled back in time, such speculations were based on the premise that the strategy guide was absolutely correct and did not contain any traps. On the other hand, if Guhan's enemy traveled back in time and deliberately wrote a strategy guide that was full of traps and left it in the yin-yang gate to harm Guhan, wouldn't Guhan be in big trouble if he really acted according to the strategy guide? Therefore, the question that Liuyan Ling raised was very constructive. If it was really as Liuyan Ling guessed, Guhan would be in great danger if he acted according to the strategy guide. No. This strategy guide is very safe. There won't be any accidents. Faced with Liuyan Ling's doubt, Guhan answered with certainty. Why? Why are you so sure? Liuyan Ling was even more confused. We can assume that this strategy guide was written by my friend, my enemy, and someone who has nothing to do with me. Guhan smiled. If this is written by my friend, then he will naturally not harm me. This strategy guide is absolutely safe. If this strategy guide was written by someone who has nothing to do with me, then there is no reason for him to harm me. If this strategy guide was written by my enemy, then there is a problem. I must have successfully passed this dungeon and completed the quest to save humanity. They want to use a fake strategy guide to make me fail. Then this becomes a paradox. Since I have already succeeded in the past, how can I fail? Since history is history, then everything will never change. It will not change the history of the entire world just because someone traveled to the past. It's just like how Jiu Xuanwu knew all the history and traveled to the past. However, she did not change anything in the end. Instead, she contributed to the history that we see and the Liu Nian family. Do you understand what I'm saying? Guhan asked helplessly when he saw the confused Liuyan Ling forget it. Liuyan Ling's expression froze. She did not even understand what Guhan was saying, let alone refute Guhan. However, it was a fact that Guhan's intelligence was higher than hers. Since Guhan said that there was nothing wrong with the strategy guide, then there really was nothing wrong with it. There was really nothing for her to worry about. What a gullible girl. Guhan looked at Liuyan Ling's back and his expression instantly became serious. He muttered to himself, "No, there is a loophole in the logic just now. If I had already failed in the dungeon and died in the history, then this strategy guide would be my death. Where is Mount Huagua? Which direction should we go?" Liuyan Ling asked her cheap disciple after confirming that they were going to Mount Huagua. "Master, are you planning to go to Mount Huagua?" Hearing Liuyan Ling's question, Song Hammer's expression was very surprised. This Mount Huagua is thousands of kilometers away from Yuzhang City. I heard that there are demons and ghosts running amok along the way. If we really want to go there, it's better for us to travel through the void. If it was possible, Liuyan Ling of course wanted to travel through the void gate. This way, whether it was speed or safety, it would be greatly improved. However, there was a prerequisite to using the void gate, and that was to have a very clear understanding of the void coordinates of the destination. Simply put, one had to go to that place and leave their mark in the void. Only then could one travel through the void gate. Otherwise, if they lost their way in the void, it would be very easy for them to go south or north and end up in a place that was tens of thousands of kilometers away from Mount Huagua. Ahem. I want to train you. Since there are many monsters along the way, I'll leave it to you to deal with them. I'll guide you from the back so that you can grow quickly, Fleeting Time said with a serious expression. You're right. Yes, Master. Song Hammer did not suspect anything. He thought that Liuyan Ling really wanted to take the opportunity to teach him. All right. Get in the car. Let's go. Guhan took out a maglev flying car from his pocket and called Song Hammer and the others to get in. He then asked Song Hammer to point in the direction of Mount Huagua, and the maglev flying car roared towards Mount Huagua. Master, this must be your magical weapon. What kind of magical weapon is this? Why have I never seen such a magical weapon before? Sitting in the maglev flying car, Song Hammer was very excited. He was very curious about everything inside the maglev flying car, and he touched it everywhere. Ah, this is a magical weapon that Master spent 3,000 years to cultivate. Don't touch it everywhere. If you damage Master's magical weapon, Master will make you suffer. Liuyan Ling was afraid that Song Hammer would touch something that could not be explained with a magical weapon, so she simply threatened him. Oh. Song Hammer replied and instantly became quiet. However, this was only temporary. Master, you must all be big shots in the heavenly court. You must have heard of the havoc in heaven 800 years ago. I don't know if Master can tell me how fierce the battle was. How the demons and ghosts led by the 7 great sages were defeated by the righteous masters of the heavenly court. What was the battle like at that time? Master. Along the way, Song Hammer did not stay quiet for long. She began to transform into a curious baby, constantly asking questions, which made Liuyan Ling very uncomfortable. She, Liuyan Ling, did not know what the background story of this dungeon world was, let alone about the 7 great sages wreaking havoc in heaven. Therefore, Liuyan Ling maintained a cold attitude throughout the whole process, and did not answer any of Song Hammer's questions. However, this was also very in line with the identity of an almighty immortal, so Song Hammer did not have any doubts about the identity of Liuyan Ling. The 4 of them walked together in the direction of Mount Huagua for a while, and found that there was a yuan ku wandering on the road in front of them. It's a transformer. Guhan recognized the identity of this yuan ku at a glance. It was a transformer. Among all the yuan ku that could make Guhan angry the most was undoubtedly a transformer. After all, it was Optimus Prime who killed Guhan's parents and sister. For such a yuan ku, even if he did not provoke Guhan or attack Guhan, even if he was just a pile of game data, Guhan did not intend to let him live. Song Hammer, I'll leave this transformer to you. Guhan pushed Song Hammer's shoulder, and Liuyan Ling immediately said, this is a trial for you. Let Master see how good you are. Don't worry, if you encounter any danger, Master will definitely save you. What transformer? Isn't this a metal puppet? Song Hammer muttered in confusion, but he did not hesitate at all. He rushed out of the car and started fighting with the unlucky transformer. Chapter 1300. The reason why Guhan asked Song Hammer to deal with the transformer was not because he wanted to train him. Instead, he wanted to see how these sword bearers, who were known as sword immortals, fought. According to the information Guhan and Song Hammer had gathered, all the sword bearers left in this instant's dungeon had become this world's sword immortals. The title of sword immortal was also specific to these sword bearers. The Yuan Ku who originally belonged to the heavenly court would not use the title of sword immortal. In the end, Guhan found that the sword immortals were essentially the same as the sword bearers. However, their fighting style was completely different from the sword bearers. In other words, their fighting style was exactly the same as Guhan's fighting style. Song Hammer did not release his sword mistress during the battle. He directly used his sword to fight the Yuan Ku. In the end, he relied on his swordsmanship to successfully kill a transformer. His fighting style was almost the same as Guhan's. More importantly, Song Hammer displayed an extremely powerful level of swordsmanship in this battle. Although this level of swordsmanship could not be compared to Guhan's, it had surpassed 99% of the sword-bearers and reached the standard of a sword master. Guhan was certain that Song Hammer did not have this level of swordsmanship before he fell into a coma. Could it be that this instant's dungeon not only blocked Song Hammer's memories, but also sent a set of extraordinary swordsmanship into Song Hammer's mind? This piqued Ji Han's curiosity. If that was really the case, and swordsmanship could be imbued into the soul through a certain method, wouldn't it mean that many sword masters could be created in the future? This would undoubtedly greatly increase the sword bearer's fighting strength. Master, how am I? Is there anything you can teach me, Master? Song Hammer asked Fleeting Time Lin excitedly after he returned from killing the transformer. I see. With Liuyan Ling's swordsmanship level, there was no problem in giving pointers to Song Hammer. Liuyan Ling casually pointed out some problems in Song Hammer's swordsmanship, which made Song Hammer extremely happy. Song Hammer, what's the standard of your sword techniques compared to other sword immortals? Guhan could not help but ask after Liuyan Ling finished giving him pointers. My swordsmanship is probably above average. Actually, I'm not too sure either. Song Hammer replied, among the people I know, my swordsmanship is the best. However, I heard that there is a sword immortal at the level of Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. His swordsmanship has reached the acme of perfection and is very powerful. A perfected Golden Immortal sword immortal? It should be the sword immortal level swordbearer who is trapped in the game. After listening to Song Hammer's words, Guhan muttered to himself. Most of the sword-bearers trapped in this instance were low-level sword-bearers, but there was a sword immortal level sword-bearer who belonged to the city of Russia. Now it seemed that the perfected golden immortal that Song Hammer mentioned was referring to the sword immortal level sword-bearer from the city of Russia. Since Song Hammer said that his swordsmanship was the best among all the sword immortals he knew, it meant that among all the sword immortals, Guhan's swordsmanship could also be ranked among the best. It seemed that the swordsmanship instilled in this instance still had some kind of limitation. It could not be instilled to a very high level of swordsmanship. Otherwise, Guhan's swordsmanship over the years would have been in vain. Along the way, Guhan and the others met a lot of Yuan Ku. Except for the 2 meteor stage Yuan Ku that were personally dealt with by Liuyan Ling, the rest of the Yuan Ku were dealt with by Song Hammer. Every time Song Hammer ended a battle, Liuyan Ling and Guhan would give Song Hammer some pointers on his swordsmanship, so along the way, Song Hammer's own swordsmanship level began to improve rapidly. If Song Hammer can bring all of his swordsmanship back to reality, then this dangerous trip was a blessing in disguise. Seeing Song Hammer's growth, Guhan naturally felt happy for Song Hammer from the bottom of his heart. After this somewhat long journey, Guhan and the others finally arrived at the mountain of flowers and fruits that Song Hammer had mentioned. According to the location on the minimap, the mountain of flowers and fruits was actually located in the northeast region, which was also within the range of Shanhai Pass. Speaking of which, we ran all the way from Yuzhong City to the mountain of flowers and fruits in the northeast. Does this count as a pilgrimage to the east? Liuyan Ling, who got out of the car, said with some excitement, "Oh yes, there are 4 of us. I am the master, and Wu Neng is my disciple. This is really interesting. At this point, an interesting idea suddenly came to Liuyan Ling's mind. She immediately said to Guhan, "Should the three of us take a Dharma name so that we can hide ourselves?" "Sure." Guhan nodded. This was indeed a good thing. "Well, Guhan, your Dharma name will be Wukong, and Shihua, your Dharma name will be Wu Jing. That will make it all," Liuyan Ling said seriously. "Whatever." Guhan did not mind. It was just a Dharma name in a dungeon. It did not matter what name it was not a big deal. Very quickly, the real Mount Huaguo was revealed in front of everyone. At that time, what surprised Jiyu Han and the others was that Mount Huaguo was already in a complete mess. There was not a single thing related to Mount Huaguo that could be seen. There were only patches of dry and cracked ground and a number of burnt branches. How did this place become like this? Is this really the mountain of flowers and fruits where the great sage, Heaven's Equal, was born? Looking at the scene in front of her, Liuyan Ling felt inexplicably sad. What's so strange about that? Back then, the 7 great sages failed in their rebellion, and the 7 demon sages were sealed in 7 different places. As the nest of the great sage, Heaven's Equal, the heavenly court naturally had to completely destroy Mountain of Flowers and Fruits. If you ask me, I think we should just flatten the entire Mountain of Flowers and Fruit. Song Hammer said. If we really flatten it, where are we going to find my peach trees of immortality? Guhan knocked Song Hammer's head. The few of them then began to search the entire Mountain of Flowers and Fruits. Except for the fact that the heavenly court had wiped out everything on the Mountain of Flowers and Fruits, which hadn't recovered even after 800 years, this place was still dead silent. There was no sign of life, let alone the legendary peach tree that could prolong one's life. "I'm sorry, Master. It seems that the peach trees of immortality have really been destroyed. We can't find them anymore. Let's go back," Song Hammer suggested in a tired voice. "Guhan, what do you think?" Liuyan Ling turned to Guhan and asked. Even if the strategy is fake, they wouldn't lie about the first mission. "I think the peach trees of immortality are most likely still on Mountain of Flowers and Fruits." Song Hammer, is there any hidden place on Mountain of Flowers and Fruits that ordinary people don't know about? Guhan asked. "Lord Guhan, I'm just a genuine immortal. If there's something that's not known to others, it's not something that I can know. Only a golden immortal of the great all-embracing heaven-like master knows," Song Hammer said helplessly. "Wait. Speaking of hidden places, there really is such a place on Mountain of Flowers and Fruit." Liuyan Ling's eyes lit up. Without another word, she immediately led Guhan and the others to the mountainside of Mountain of Flowers and Fruits. What a huge waterfall. When they finally stopped, they found that one side of Mountain of Flowers and Fruits was actually a huge waterfall. A huge stream of water poured down from the top of the mountain, forming a huge waterfall. Legend has it that there is a water curtain cave behind this waterfall. It is the most hidden place on Mountain of Flowers and Fruits. Maybe the peach trees of immortality are hidden in the water curtain cave, Liuyan Ling said. "Okay. Let's go." Guhan did not say anything else. He took the lead and flew to the center of the waterfall. After passing through the turbulent water, he found an extremely hidden entrance behind the waterfall. Soon, Lu Shihua, Liuyan Ling, and Song Hammer flew in one after another. This is really the water curtain cave. The group walked along the cave for a while, and sure enough, they found a stone tablet with the words Water Curtain Cave written on it. What surprised Jiyu Han was that other than the stone tablet with the words Water Curtain Cave on it, there was actually a layer of dimensional barrier system outside. Wasn't this the residence of the demon Yuanko? Why is there a dimensional wall system here? Which Yuan Ku would like to make a dimensional wall system as his home? Forget it. Let's go in first. Just as Guhan was about to enter the cave, he suddenly heard Song Hammer yell behind him. "Danger! Don't go in. What's wrong?" Guhan turned his head and asked. "Master, there is a magical barrier here. You immortals cannot enter. Only us sword immortals can enter," Song Hammer said nervously. "What magical barrier? Are you talking about this dimensional wall system?" Guhan touched the dimensional wall in front of him, then took a step forward and walked directly in. There was no problem at all. What a spectacle. Lord Guhan, how can you go in? Didn't you say that immortals cannot enter the magical barrier unless they break it by force? Song Hammer scratched his head in confusion. Let's go too. Liuonian Ling said. In the end, she and Lu Shihua also entered the dimensional wall. Song Hammer had no choice but to follow them in. At the same time, he muttered, could it be that those immortals lied to me? They didn't lie to you. Of course they can't enter, Guhan sneered. The real immortals were actually Yuan Ku. Of course they could not enter the dimensional wall system. Only sword immortals like Song Hammer, who was actually a human sword wielder, could enter the dimensional wall system. This demonic barrier was most likely a name made up by those immortals in order to deceive humans. This was obviously the case, and it was a matter of course. Then, a new question arose. If the dimensional wall system was slandered by the heaven as a demonic enchantment, then apart from Yuanko, would the so-called demonic beasts also count human beings as one of them? Chapter 1301. Is this the lair of Yuan Ku, the great sage, heaven's equal? Why does it look no different from a human's home? Stepping into the water curtain cave, Guhan and the others saw a dilapidated scene. However, it was different from the filthy cave filled with all kinds of disgusting corpses and bones of demons and monsters. This water curtain cave actually looked like an ordinary home. There was a spacious and comfortable double bed, ceiling lamps, a huge 100-inch TV, soft and comfortable sofa, and so on. The water curtain cave had all the furniture that a normal home should have. It did not look like a demon's home at all. Instead, it looked no different from a normal human's house. Be careful. This is the lair of demons and monsters. There are thunder and lightning arrays everywhere. If you are not careful, you will be attacked by the thunder and lightning arrays. We must find the core of the entire array and destroy it to ensure our safety, Song Hammer said nervously the moment they entered the water curtain cave. Is the core of the array you mentioned that thing? Guhan glanced around the entire water curtain cave and pointed to a cupboard in the corner. There were many wires connected to it. That's right. That's the core of the thunder and lightning formation. The core contains extremely powerful chaotic chi. Once we're touched by the chaotic chi, our bodies will mutate and will die within a few months. Song Hammer looked at the core of the array and his whole body collapsed. He was like a cat with its hair standing on end. His whole body was focused to the extreme. This is not the core of any thunder and lightning array. It is clearly a nuclear fuel cell, Guhan said with a bitter smile when he saw Song Hammer's nervous state. This small nuclear fuel cell was obviously the power source of the entire water curtain cave. It was used to power the electrical equipment in the water curtain cave. As for being attacked by the thunder and lightning array, it was most likely because they accidentally touched the exposed wires and got electrocuted. Nuclear fuel cells were a technology developed by humans before the apocalypse. Because of Yuan Ku, thermal, hydroelectric, wind and other conventional power plants could not operate normally. Only nuclear power could be developed. When Yangjing City was built, small nuclear fuel cells had already been produced. However, with the continuous advancement of black technology, small nuclear fuel cells had withdrawn from the stage of history, and everyone had switched to using miniature nuclear fuel cells. If one wanted to see such a small nuclear fuel cell in reality, they would probably have to go to a museum to find an exhibit from 800 years ago. Through these discoveries, it could be fully proved that this was not the lair of the great sage of the demon race, Yuan Ku. It was clearly a human's home. But why did the heavenly court say that a human's home was Yuan Ku and the great sage of the demon race? This made Guhan a little confused. Guhan, come and have a look, there seems to be a mobile phone here, said Fleeting Time excitedly. Ji Han walked up to the bed and found an antique phone hidden under the pillow beside the bed. With the invention of the personal terminal more than 700 years ago, mobile phones had been completely eliminated from human society. If one wanted to see a mobile phone, they would have to search for it in the ruins outside or in the museum. This is definitely not a mobile phone from before the apocalypse. It's a banana brand mobile phone produced by humans after the apocalypse. said Guhan decisively as he flipped the phone to the back of the phone. There was a banana-shaped icon on the back of the phone. Yes. I've heard of it before. The Banana brand mobile phone was created after the apocalypse. There was no such brand before the apocalypse, said Liuyan Ling with a nod. Look at the interface of this mobile phone. It's an optoelectronic interface. It seems that this mobile phone was produced during the era when mobile phones and personal terminals were replaced. The earliest mobile phone was produced after 180 years after the apocalypse, said Guhan thoughtfully as he stared at the optoelectronic interface of the mobile phone. All the evidence pointed to one thing. The water curtain cave was built 800 years ago, and the humans who lived in the water curtain cave were also humans who lived 800 years ago. At the very least, the world of the dungeon was in line with human history 800 years ago. Wait a minute. Guhan. If the interface of this mobile phone is an optoelectronic interface, then can our personal terminals? Before Liuyan Ling could finish her sentence, Guhan understood what she was trying to say. The optoelectronic interface was the most suitable interface for personal devices. Even after 800 years, the interface of the personal terminal was still an optoelectronic interface. If the mobile phone was also an optoelectronic interface, then with the excellent analytical ability of the personal terminal, he might be able to obtain some important information from the memory of the 800 years old mobile phone. Let's do it. Guhan immediately controlled his personal terminal to shoot out an optoelectronic connection line into the mobile phone and began to read the information in the mobile phone's memory. Unexpectedly, the interior of the mobile phone was quite well preserved. The personal terminal did not waste any effort to successfully read a large amount of information. Although most of the information was useless and discarded, in the end, Guhan unexpectedly found an electronic diary among the information. Although the owner of the mobile phone did not write a diary every day, he would more or less write 1 or 2 entries every week. Through reading these diary entries, the background of the dungeon world gradually filled up in front of Guhan. Just as Guhan had guessed, this dungeon world was a normal world from the beginning of the apocalypse to about 180 years ago. The abnormal situation began with the appearance of a large-scale dimensional rift. Almost all of the heavenly court's Yuan Ku entered the human world through that dimensional rift. Then, the heavenly court had 5 desolate-grade Yuan Ku and dozens of eternal-grade Yuan Ku overnight. Therefore, the heavenly court began to forcefully integrate the other Yuan Ku forces and launched an attack on the humans' Swallow capital city. In the end, the Swallow capital city's dimensional barrier system was destroyed, and the city was breached. Most of the humans became heavenly court's captives. Only a small number of swordbearers escaped and began a life of hiding and living an ignoble existence for 30 years. After defeating the humans, the satisfied heavenly court did not focus on exterminating the remaining human forces. Instead, it set up a trap to sneak attack the other Yuan Ku forces. In the end, heavenly court won again. The main forces of the other Yuan Ku forces were also wiped out by heavenly court. This situation became a situation where heavenly court's forces were the only ones on Earth. In order to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots, heavenly court began to launch rounds of annihilation against the humans and Yuan Ku. Under the threat of survival, the remaining humans and Yuan Ku gradually integrated. This was a great irony. As heavenly court wiped out the remaining humans and Yuan Ku forces, the humans and Yuan Ku forces became weaker and weaker. In order not to fall into a situation of waiting for death, the humans and Yuan Ku decided to unite all the Emperor swordbearers and desolate-grade Yuan Ku forces of both forces to launch a sneak attack on heavenly court. As long as they could kill 2 or 3 desolate-grade Yuan Ku forces, the humans and Yuan Ku forces would be able to launch a counterattack. He was recognized by both sides. Both sides also contributed their remaining top-notch forces. Among them, there were 2 Emperor sword-level sword-wielders from the humans, and 4 desolate-level Yuanko. In total, there were 6 top-notch experts. They first created the illusion that they were active in America and lured the 3 desolate-grade Yuan Ku forces to America. Then, they launched a sneak attack on Heavenly Court. The diary stopped at this point. This was because the diary's owner was one of the 2 remaining Emperor swordbearers, Heaven's equal Gendi. The water curtain cave was where Heaven's equal Gendi lived in seclusion. After he finished writing the last diary entry, he left all his belongings in the water curtain cave. He did not bring them with him to the battlefield. At this point, Guhan finally understood the background story of this instance dungeon. This instance dungeon was indeed a world that had been completely taken over by Heavenly Court. Humans had been brainwashed by Heavenly Court to become Heavenly Court's tools. Those who had resisted Heavenly Court back then had probably been slandered as monsters and Yuan Ku forces by Heavenly Court. This was indeed an instance dungeon that allowed one's imagination to run wild. As for the outcome of the battle, it was not written in the diary. However, based on what Guhan had seen and the story of Song Hammer's havoc in heaven, he could guess that the sneak attack had definitely failed. The 6 humans and Yuan Ku forces had also been slandered as the 7 sages. However, the strange thing was that there had only been 6 people. How had they become the 7 sages in the end? Guhan, do you think this is the peach tree of immortality? While Guhan was reading the diary, Liuyan Ling had also made a new discovery in the water curtain cave. She found a tree in a corner of the cave that had all its branches cut off, leaving only the trunk. The moment she saw the trunk, Liuyan Ling immediately remembered their original goal, to find the peach tree of immortality that had been snatched away by Gendi. That's right. This is the peach tree of immortality. Guhan looked at the lines on the trunk and found that there were over 1,000 of them. This was definitely an ancient tree that had lived for over 1,000 years. Aside from the peach tree of immortality, what else could there be in the water curtain cave that had lived for over 1,000 years? Keep. Guhan stroked the trunk of the peach tree of immortality and kept it into his dimensional pocket. The 3 of them searched the water curtain cave again. After confirming that there were no other valuable clues, they left with Song Hammer. I'll light a fire, Song Hammer immediately said when he heard that Guhan and Liuyan Ling were leaving. He took out a lighter from his pocket and was about to burn the place down. What are you doing? When Ji Han saw Song Hammer's action, he slapped the lighter in his hand away and asked sternly. According to the rules of the Heavenly Court, we have to burn down the residences of the demon beasts when we find them, Song Hammer said helplessly. Chapter 1302. In the end, under Guhan's organization, Song Hammer was unable to burn down the Heavens Equal Gendi's water curtain cave. On the way to Xianyang City in the hover car, Song Hammer fell into a rare moment of silence. His mouth was tightly shut and he didn't say a word. His eyes kept darting around. Clearly, something was brewing in his heart. Song Hammer's strange behavior didn't escape Guhan's eyes. Seeing Song Hammer's reaction, Guhan vaguely knew that he could no longer deceive Song Hammer with his story that was full of loopholes. Right now, Song Hammer was probably very suspicious of Guhan and Liuyan Ling. If it wasn't for his fear of Liuyan Ling and Guhan's power, Song Hammer might have already betrayed them. What are you thinking about? Guhan suddenly stopped the car and handed the driving task to Liuyan Ling. At the same time, he let Lu Shihua sit in the front seat while he pulled Song Hammer to the back seat. He looked at Song Hammer with a smile and asked, "No, I'm not thinking about anything." Song Hammer got a fright and said in a panic, "Don't pretend. Let me guess. Are you thinking that the 3 of us aren't from the Heavenly Court? Are you suspecting our identities?" Guhan narrowed his eyes and asked, "No, definitely not." Song Hammer waved his hands and said anxiously, "I'm Master's disciple. How could I suspect Master's identity? That's absolutely impossible. Master, you're definitely immortals from the Heavenly Court. There's no mistake. Didn't I say it already? Don't pretend with me and I won't pretend with you." Guhan laughed. "To tell you the truth, the 3 of us are indeed not from the Heavenly Court. To be more accurate, the 3 of us are the demons and ghosts that the Heavenly Court is talking about." Song Hammer sweated profusely when he heard Ji Han's straightforward reply. He immediately covered his ears and tried his best to shake his head. "I'm not listening. I'm not listening. I didn't hear anything. Put it down. I'm not joking with you. We are actually the same kind." Ji Han grabbed Song Hammer's hand, then told Song Hammer everything he saw and guessed about the background of this world in the water curtain cave, and told him the truth of this world. However, under such circumstances, no matter how much Guhan said, Song Hammer only treated Guhan's words as the bewitchment of demons and ghosts. She didn't believe a single word from Guhan. Seeing Song Hammer's reaction, Guhan couldn't help but feel annoyed. If Song Hammer wasn't his friend, then he would just throw him out of the car, regardless of whether he was dead or alive. However, the problem was that Song Hammer was Guhan's childhood friend. It was impossible for Guhan to harm Song Hammer. Instead, he would do everything possible to protect Song Hammer's life. After thinking hard for a while, Guhan asked Liuyan Ling to stop the car, and the four of them got out of the car together. What can I do to make Song Hammer believe me? You're finally going to kill me, right? I won't betray you guys, so just let me go. Seeing that he was being pulled out of the car, Song Hammer thought that Guhan wanted to kill him to silence him, and immediately shouted in fear. What you guys? It's us, we are the same kind, we are the sword bearers. Guhan knocked Song Hammer's head, and then pulled out the Extinguish Immortal sword from his waist and threw it out. The Extinguish Immortal sword blossomed in the air, and finally turned into the appearance of Extinguish Immortal. However, it was different from the Extinguish Immortal sword that was full of evil ideas. The Extinguish Immortal sword that was released now was very sluggish, without any spirituality to speak of. It was not a natural sword mistress, but rather a man-made one. This was because before entering the game, Guhan didn't let his sword mistress consciousness follow him into the dungeon. After all, this was an extremely dangerous dungeon, and Guhan didn't have absolute confidence that he could leave the dungeon alive. If his natural sword mistress was trapped in the dungeon with him, then it would be a huge loss. Therefore, the sword mistresses that Guhan used in the dungeon were all man-made sword mistresses that were automatically generated by the system. Naturally, they did not have any spirituality to speak of. On the other hand, Lu Shihua and Fleeting Timeling were also using artificial sword maidens. Sword demon. Sword demon. Seeing the Extinguish Immortal sword in Guhan's hand turn into a beautiful woman, Song Hammer screamed in fear. What? You know my sword mistress? Seeing Song Hammer's reaction, Guhan narrowed his eyes and asked. So you are the demons of the Sword Demon clan. You can turn swords into women. So you are from the Sword Demon clan. Song Hammer was so terrified that he began to babble nonsense. However, it also confirmed the diary that Ji Yu Han had read in the Heavens Equal Sword Emperor's notebook. After conquering all of the human base cities, the Heavenly Court killed all of the adult humans, leaving behind only the children who didn't have much memory. They began to brainwash them, telling them that there was a kind of demon outside called the Sword Demon clan. They looked similar to humans and liked to tell humans that they were the same kind and must not be believed. Therefore, under the demonization of the Heavenly Court, the original humans became the Sword Demon clan that the brainwashed humans spoke of. Fine, even if we are the Sword Demon clan, do you think that you are a real human? Speaking up to this point, Guhan suddenly pulled out the sword mistress casted cloud iron from Song Hammer's scabbard. To tell you the truth, you are the same as us, a member of the Sword Demon clan. Hee. You are lying to me. I am not a member of the Sword Demon clan. Song Hammer expressed that he did not believe a single word that Guhan said. You used the power of the rule to seal the sword mistress? Guhan felt the casted cloud iron in his hand and realized that the casted cloud iron was enveloped by the power of the rule. It was also this power of the rule that sealed the casted cloud iron's ability to transform into the form of a sword mistress, preventing Song Hammer from releasing the casted cloud iron in his hand. Break for me. The power of the rule that sealed the casted cloud iron could not be broken by the sword wielder's normal strength. Only the power of the rule could break the power of the rule. It just so happened that Guhan possessed the power of the rule. A light flashed in Guhan's hand. Guhan poured the power of the rule that belonged to Guhan into the casted cloud iron. The entire casted cloud iron emitted a dazzling light. The power of the rule that trapped the casted cloud iron could not resist Guhan's power and was broken in a short period of time. The casted cloud iron was finally unsealed and returned to its most normal state. However, Guhan could not release the casted cloud iron into the form of a sword mistress. The only one who could do so was Song Hammer himself. Take it. Then think about releasing this sword mistress. Guhan stuffed the casted cloud iron into Song Hammer's hand and said calmly, Okay. In order to save his life, Song Hammer naturally agreed. However, in reality, Song Hammer secretly decided that even if he was beaten to death, he would not think about releasing this sword mistress. Then, the casted cloud iron in Song Hammer's hand flashed. The sword mistress casted cloud iron that Guhan had not seen for a long time appeared in front of everyone. How can this be? Seeing his own sword transform into the form of a huge girl, Song Hammer was dumbfounded. Could it be that the truth was as Guhan said? That he was not a real human, but a demon of the Sword Demon clan? From this moment on, Song Hammer began to doubt his own identity and existence for the first time in his life. Master, I finally see you. I thought you had become stupid and would never return to your normal state. You really forgot about me, the casted cloud iron. As soon as the casted cloud iron appeared, she hugged Song Hammer. This 2-meter-tall woman actually burst into tears. Her tears were like a waterfall, instantly drenching Song Hammer's entire body. Seeing this scene, Guhan could not help but laugh as he said to the casted cloud iron, Lady Casted Cloud Iron, I haven't seen you for more than 3 years. You are still as beautiful as ever. Brother Guhan. You are also in the game. The casted cloud iron only then discovered Guhan's existence. Then, she hugged Song Hammer in her arms and chatted happily with Guhan. Through the conversation with the casted cloud iron, Guhan found out that Song Hammer had missed Guhan's coronation ceremony because he was adventuring outside. When he returned, he was a little unhappy. Coincidentally, the game opened a celebration event for the Sea Emperor's coronation. Song Hammer participated in the event in the game as a way to celebrate for Guhan. However, he did not expect that halfway through the game, all the players in the game would instantly fall into a deep sleep, and the sword ladies would be suppressed back to their sword forms. After that, the casted cloud iron felt a powerful force seal her sword form. Although Song Hammer woke up from her deep sleep, it was as if she had become a different person. She had lost all her memories and still thought that she was some sword immortal. She did not care about the sealed casted cloud iron at all. If not for Guhan's timely appearance, perhaps the casted cloud iron would have gone crazy. At the same time, Guhan discovered that the casted cloud iron's sense of time was still normal. From the time her soul fell into a deep sleep until now, it had been a total of more than 2 days. Moreover, the casted cloud iron maintained her consciousness throughout the entire process. There were no traces of her memories being modified. This meant that although the memories of the sword wielder had been tampered with, the memories and consciousness of the sword ladies were still intact. If he could completely remove the seal on all the sword ladies, then these sword immortals would change from his enemies to his helpers. At the same time, in the faraway heavens, a desolate level Yuan Ku, who was dressed like an emperor, was sitting on the throne high above. He frowned and said in a low voice, My rule power has been broken. Who is it? Could it be that among Yuan Ku and the remaining humans, another emperor sword level combatant has been born? Clairvoyant, clairaudient. Both of you, quickly come and see me. The desolate level Yuan Ku did not dare to delay. He immediately sent out his decree and ordered clairvoyant and clairaudient to come and see him. Chapter 1303. On the dilapidated road on the outskirts of Elevenan, Shaanxi province, a maglev flying car was moving forward at a constant speed. However, the owner of the hovercraft did not seem to know that there were many sneaky figures lurking in the ruins on both sides of the road. When the hovercraft arrived at a predetermined location, a thick earthen wall suddenly appeared out of thin air, blocking the hovercraft's path. In the next second, the hovercraft was about to crash into the earthen wall and be smashed into smithereens. In the end, the hovercraft crashed directly into the earthen wall. The entire world was instantly shrouded in grey dust, as if it had entered a heavy smog. Go. Kill these lackey sword immortals of the heavenly court. As the collision occurred, many ambushers rushed out from the ruins on the side of the road. However, the composition of these ambushers was very complicated. Some were simple magical beasts, some were strange creatures, and some were humans with all sorts of strange abilities. There were even 2 sword-bearers with sword mistresses mixed in with the group. The motley crew swarmed forward and launched a frenzied assault on their opponents in the smog. It was effortless. When the smog dissipated, the few people in the hovercraft were miserably captured by the ambushers. Guhan, Liunian Ling, Lu Shihua, Cast Cloud Iron, and Song Hammer were surrounded by a dark light. Under this dark light, Guhan and the others could not even move their fingers. The only thing that could work normally was their mouths. Kel Thuzad, is there a problem with your spell? In my opinion, why don't I kill all these puppets of the heavenly court with one sword strike? Wouldn't it be great to end all troubles once and for all? Seeing that Jiu Han and the others had been subdued, a handsome man dressed in crimson armor and holding a large axe said. He had a hint of violence in his eyes. No. My dear Teleus. My king has just ordered that she will be here soon. Before she arrives, these people cannot be killed. The man called Kel Thuzad, who was actually a skeleton shrouded in a magic robe, said in a gentle but unquestionable tone. Don't worry, with my shadow word, bind, they will not be able to break free. You wizards always make people feel at ease. Teleus muttered. He did not want to do anything to Guhan and the others. Guhan glanced at the ambushers. There were about 30 people in total, and they were all dragon-level Yuan Ku. Only Teleus and Kel Thuzad, who spoke just now, were nether-level Yuan Ku. Hey, I think you are mistaken. We are all on the same side. We are not accomplices of the heavenly court, Guhan said, pretending to be wronged. In fact, if Guhan had not ordered everyone to surrender, these dragon-level Yuan Ku would not have been a match for Guhan and Liunian Ling. What a joke. You dogs of the heavenly court, now that you are about to die, you still have the nerve to say that you are on the same side as us? How shameless. Teleus spat on the ground, then pointed at Song Hammer's head and scolded, I know this guy. He is one of the city guard captains of Yuzhang City. His hands are stained with the blood of many of our brothers. I will be the first to kill him. Yes. Guhan, aren't you with them? Didn't I already say that I want to renounce darkness for light? Why do they want to kill us? Song Hammer was also scared out of his wits and said in fear. Don't panic. This guy doesn't know what's good for him. There will always be someone who knows what's good for him. Let's wait for their king to come. Guhan said calmly. What? How dare you say that I don't know what's good for me? Treus appeared to be extremely angry. He swung his axe at Jiu Han's head, intending to swing it at him. Stop right there, Teleus. A mighty voice with a hint of softness came from afar. Hearing this voice, the angry Teleus instantly became as obedient as a kitten. My king. Teleus bowed respectfully when he saw a valiant swordsman clad in blue armor and wielding a long sword walking over. Artoria. Seeing this swordsman, Guhan's body trembled slightly. He finally saw the living King Arthur again, although it was still in the game. You know me? Artoria said in surprise when she heard Guhan call her name. You lowly dogs. How dare you call the great King Arthur by his name? Teleus was the first to be displeased when he heard Guhan call out Artoria's name. He raised his axe and said loudly, My king, there is nothing to say. Let me kill these dogs. Artoria, I haven't seen you for more than 3 years. You are still as beautiful as ever, Guhan said softly as he looked at Artoria's face. Did we meet 3 years ago? How come I don't remember? Artoria's brows furrowed even more. She did not like this kind of man who acted too familiar. Of course we met. It's just that we were in another world. Guhan laughed heartily and stood up from the ground. The sword energy on the surface of his body rotated and the psionic energy of Shadow Word, bind that had trapped Guhan was instantly destroyed. Guhan immediately regained his freedom. The moment he saw Artoria, Guhan changed his mind. He no longer wanted to pretend to be weak. He wanted to show his true strength. Impossible. My Shadow Word. Seeing Guhan break free from the bindings of Shadow Word, Kel Thuzad was shocked. His expressionless face was filled with fear and disbelief. Kel Thuzad. I told you, your magic is not reliable. You still want to see my all-conquering axe? In the next second, Telius' axe swung towards Guhan's head. Guhan smiled slightly and did not dodge. He did not even pull out the sword maiden. He just condensed a sword energy at his fingertips and flicked it at Telius' axe. Telius felt a huge impact, and his whole body flew out in an instant. Attack! When the other Yuan Ku saw this, they immediately condensed their own power and prepared to fight Guhan and the others again. However, they were stopped by a small, smooth hand. Stop! This is a powerhouse who has mastered the power of laws. Even a few hundred of you are not enough to deal with him. The one who spoke was King Arthur Artoria. The moment she saw Guhan make his move, she knew that she had encountered a tough opponent. So tough that King Arthur himself did not have the confidence to defeat his opponent. You guys run. I'll hold this guy back. Artoria took a deep breath and pulled out the sword in the stone from her waist. She put on her classic battle stance and prepared to fight to the death with Guhan, using herself to buy time for her subordinates to escape. I think we might have misunderstood. I've said it before. We are not enemies. We are on the same side. Guhan smiled and patted his waist. The 8 sword maidens, Qingpin, Shishui, Etian, Duyu, Chijian, Juzi, Juexian, and Juzian flew out from Guhan's dimensional pocket and stood behind Guhan. However, their expressions were a little stiff. They were all man-made sword maidens. I am a sword wielder. I am not a sword saint. After Guhan said that, Liuyan Ling and Lu Shihua broke free from the dark word spell and released their sword maidens. In the end, 17 sword maidens appeared beside them. I think this proves our identities. An emperor sword wielder. You are an emperor sword wielder. When the 17 sword maidens appeared at the same time, especially the 8 sword maidens behind Ji Han, Artoria did not even have the courage to raise her sword in the stone. What kind of joke was this? If she was facing an emperor sword wielder, it would be futile no matter how much Artoria resisted. Her subordinates would not be able to leave this place alive. Although I'm not considered a true emperor sword level sword wielder, you can treat me as the weakest emperor sword level sword wielder. Ji Han laughed. Who are you? Even if you are not the accomplices of the heavenly court, I have never heard of an emperor sword wielder emerging from the remnants of the human race. Your emperor sword maidens are all sealed in the heavenly court. How can you be an emperor sword wielder? Artoria said in disbelief. Her eyes were still filled with caution. Clearly, she did not believe this emperor sword wielder who had suddenly appeared. If I told you that I transmigrated from another parallel world, would you believe me? Guhan said faintly. Logically speaking, the best way to fool Artoria would be to say that Ji Han and Fleeting Time were humans who were lucky enough to survive, and that they were lucky enough to obtain an emperor sword mistress that had not been discovered by anyone before. That would be the best way to fool Artoria. However, Guhan knew very well that such a lie might work on a Chinibya kid, but it was impossible to deceive a knowledgeable monarch. His lack of understanding of this dungeon world would allow the other party to easily expose him. Therefore, Guhan chose a half-truth. Guhan said that he was a sword wielder from another parallel dimension. The sword wielder of that world had not completely fallen and was still fighting with the heavenly court and the Yuan Ku. Meanwhile, Guhan and the others had accidentally come to this world through the dimensional rift and were currently looking for a way to return to their own world. Apart from hiding that this was a game world, Guhan told almost all the truth. It was precisely because of Guhan's words that Artoria could not find any flaws other than feeling that Guhan's words were nonsense. Chapter 1304. Is this the place where you made a name for yourself in the game? Liuyan Ling asked curiously as she stood shoulder to shoulder with Guhan at the entrance of Xianyang Airport. Lu Shihua was also curious. The most legendary story about the identity of the military governor was the King Arthur's betrayal dungeon. It was a story that every player loved to talk about. Even after the identity of the military governor had been dormant for 3 years, there would still be players mentioning the shocking performance of the military governor from time to time. Therefore, both Liuyan Ling and Lu Shihua were very curious about the story of Guhan. You've been here before, and you've made a name for yourself here? Artoria asked incredulously after hearing Liuan Ling's words. That's impossible. We've lived here for hundreds of years. If he was stirring up trouble here, how could Traus not know? Traus, who was holding the axe, said with a displeased look. That's impossible. That's something from another dimension. 3,000 years ago, Artoria, because you betrayed the Martyr's Palace, you were trapped in this underground palace, ready to die. In the end, my friends and I rescued you and brought you back to Yangjing City. Then, you cooperated with Yangjing City to destroy the evil Martyr's Palace. Ji Yuhan laughed as he spouted nonsense. That's a matter from another dimension. Don't spout nonsense here. The Martyr's Palace is an ally of us swordbearers. Why would we swordbearers want to destroy it? A sword wielder called Liu Qiao said. He was a sword wielder born from the remnants of the humans in this world, and he was a famed sword wielder. It was unknown whether Liu Qiao was a player's soul or an NPC that had evolved from this dungeon world. I told you. That's a matter from another dimension. In that dimension, we humans had more than 10 Emperor Sword Wielder and built 10 base cities. Apart from humans, all other creatures were our enemies. Guhan said calmly. Doesn't that mean, in your dimension, we humans are like the heavens now? That's so enviable, it's like living in your world. Liu Qiao said with a yearning expression after hearing Guhan's words. It's okay. If I can open the dimensional door, then I'll definitely bring all the humans in this world back to live a good life. Guhan said straightforwardly. Really? Liu Qiao's mood suddenly became extremely excited. It was like living under an overpass, relying on scavenging for a living, suddenly finding out that your biological brother is a billionaire in another city, and this billionaire wants to take you back to live a good life. You would also become extremely excited. Guhan's words had pulled the hearts of the humans in this world closer to his position. Are you openly poaching us? Artoria glared at Guhan angrily. Artoria, you have to think about it in another way. Trust me, I can handle it. Lu Ban insisted. In the face of Lu Ban's insistence, Artoria had no choice but to give Guhan another warning look and leave with her people, leaving Guhan and the others alone with Lu Ban. Seeing Artoria leave, Lu Ban showed a long-lost smile and said to Guhan, Military Governor, my young friend, I haven't seen you for more than 3 years. I didn't expect you to become so strong. Even your teammates are much stronger than they were back then. You are. Hearing Lu Ban's words, Guhan's expression changed drastically. Lu Ban actually knew him, and he could even tell him about what happened 3 years ago. Could it be? It seems that Military Governor, my young friend, has already guessed it. However, I am the NPC Lu Ban who gave you Lady Ju's keepsake in this place 3 years ago. Lu Ban revealed his identity without hesitation. He even knew that he was an NPC. Liuan Ling and Lu Shihua were confused. They could not help but look at Guhan and ask, what's going on? It's like this. Guhan told the story of what happened with Lu Ban in the dungeon. He then asked Lu Ban, why? Why did you appear in this dungeon? How did you know your identity as an NPC? If you really knew that you were an NPC, shouldn't you have been refreshed after the end of the dungeon 3 years ago? At that time, I was indeed refreshed. Lu Ban laughed. The old me you see now is no longer the old me from 3 years ago. This is a brand new body. It's just that some of my memories have been preserved. Understood. Guhan nodded in his heart. It turned out that the memory of the dungeon had been preserved in a brand new Lu Ban's body. Actually, my memory should not have been preserved. However, when you, Military Governor, activated this dungeon, my memory was directly transferred to this body. I have been waiting for you for 3 years, Military Governor. Lu Ban sighed. It turned out that Lu Ban's memory had been preserved because Guhan had triggered an Emperor Sword quest. You came to this dungeon world 3 years ago. Could it be that this dungeon world had already appeared 3 years ago? Guhan heard a crucial piece of information from Lu Ban. If Lu Ban's memory had been transferred to this body 3 years ago, did that not mean that this dungeon world had already been established 3 years ago? That's right. At that time, I thought that you, Military Governor, would immediately complete the Emperor Sword quest as soon as you received the Emperor Sword quest. I never expected that I would wait for 3 years. If not for the change in this dungeon world, I'm afraid that you, military governor, would have completely forgotten about this Emperor Sword quest. Lu Ban, the old man, said sadly. Guhan could not help but feel a little ashamed. The truth was just like what Lu Ban had said. If not for the huge problem with the game, Guhan might have completely forgotten about this Emperor Sword quest. Since you already know that this dungeon world has changed, you must also know that millions of human souls are trapped in this dungeon world and unable to escape. Do you know the reason for this world's change and how to release these human souls? Guhan asked the most important question. I know. Lu Ban nodded readily. Whether it is the reason for this dungeon world's change or how to save these human souls, I know the answer to all your questions. This is also what I want to tell you. Chapter 1305. I shouldn't have told you all this. You'd have to go through the 120-level mission in the Instance Dungeon to find out. However, the Instance Dungeon has become like this. To save the human souls trapped here, I'll tell you everything, Lu Ban said with a sigh. Lu Ban's words made Ji Yuhan sweat profusely. If he really had to go through the 120-level game mission, Ji Yuhan might not be able to save these unlucky people even if he had to wait until next month. This Emperor Sword Instance Dungeon was originally a normal Emperor Sword Instance Dungeon. It was the starting mission for the Heavenly Court Instance Dungeon series. There was nothing special about it. I just didn't expect Ju Yu's soul to be hiding in this preset Instance Dungeon world. However, if Ju Yu wanted to control the entire game world, he had to defeat the original owner of the game world, Miss Tomono Kakaze, Lu Ban said slowly. Ju Yu was actually no match for Miss Tomono Kakaze, so he set up a trap in this Instance Dungeon. First, he lured Miss Tomono Kakaze's consciousness into the Instance Dungeon. Then, he cut off the connection between the Instance Dungeon and the main system, causing Miss Tomono Kakaze, who had lost her foundation, to fall into a deep sleep. Then, he tried to destroy the Instance Dungeon and Miss Tomono Kakaze's consciousness. However, before Miss Tomono Kakaze fell into a deep sleep, she told me everything with her mind. She asked me to pass the message to Master Kanzu before the Instance Dungeon closed, and to continue waiting for you in the Instance Dungeon, military governor. Master Kanzu came to stop the Instance Dungeon before it was completely destroyed. He fought with Ju Yu again. However, Ju Yu had already stolen Miss Tomono Kakaze's power. Master Kanzu was no match for Ju Yu. Thus, Sir Kanzu decided to sacrifice his own sword soul to become one with this Instance Dungeon. In the process, the souls of some innocent humans were sucked into this Instance Dungeon and trapped within it. That way, Ju Yu will not be able to destroy this Instance Dungeon. It is the equivalent of protecting Miss Tomono Kakaze's soul. But this way, this Instance Dungeon has completely broken away from the system's control. It has become an Instance Dungeon that can only be entered but not left. This is the reason for this world's mutation. Lu Ban's explanation was very thorough. Without any suspense, he directly told Guhan the reason for the formation of this world. The world liked good people like him. Then why has the memory of humans been washed to this state? Guhan asked in confusion. Actually, their memories have not been altered. Their memories have been sealed in their subconscious. This is the result of the soul battle between Kanzu and Ju Yu, Lu Ban explained. The souls of these humans who were sucked into this Instance Dungeon have merged with the NPCs of this world. The memories of those NPCs have replaced the memories of these human players, and at the same time, they have suppressed the human players' memories in their subconscious. Is there a way to release their memories? Guhan asked. There is only one way to release their memories, and that is to let Miss Tomono Kakaze regain control of the entire game world. Then, she can erase the memories of these NPCs from the root. Without the suppression of the NPC's memories, the human's own memories will naturally be released without any danger, Lu Ban said. So, the key to all the problems lies with Tomono Kakaze. As long as Tomono Kakaze, who is trapped in this world, the entire Instance Dungeon and all humans will be able to return to normal. As for whether we need to clear this Instance Dungeon or not, are all the quests not important? Guhan guessed. Military governor, my young friend, you are right, but you are also wrong. Indeed, saving Miss Tomono Kakaze will save everyone. However, the prerequisite to saving Miss Tomono Kakaze is to complete all the quests in this instance dungeon. Lu Ban sighed. To ensure that Miss Tomono Kakaze is suppressed, Juyu has used all the root data of this instance dungeon. Unless the entire instance dungeon disappears on its own, Miss Tomono Kakaze will not be able to wake up from the suppression of the instance dungeon. And to make this instance dungeon disappear on its own, the only way is for me to complete the quest of this instance dungeon and eliminate the reason for its existence at the root. Then, this instance dungeon will disappear on its own, right? Before Lu Ban could finish, Guhan blurted out. That's right. Mr. Military Governor, you are indeed smart. In that case, I don't need to waste my breath on this. Lu Ban nodded. After all this talk, the problem is back to the source of the problem. I still need to complete all the quests in this instance dungeon. Guhan smiled bitterly. You just said that this instance dungeon has 120 quests. If I were to complete them one by one, how long would it take for me to complete them? There's no hurry. Of course, I won't let you complete all 120 quests, Mr. Military Governor. Lu Ban smiled. I wonder if Mr. Military Governor has brought the Peach Tree of Immortality with you. Here it is. Guhan took out the Peach Tree of Immortality from his pocket. Ahem. There's something wrong with the Peach Tree of Immortality that you stole from the Peach Garden. You'll need the Peach Tree of Immortality from Heavens = Water Curtain Cave. Let me tell you, Heavens = home is in Mount Huagua. Before Lu Ban could finish, Guhan interrupted him. Master Lu Ban, this is the Peach Tree of Immortality from Heavens = Water Curtain Cave. Guhan said calmly. What? I didn't even tell you. How do you know that you've found the Peach Tree of Immortality from him? Lu Ban was obviously shocked by Guhan. He was so angry that his face turned red. I obtained a strategy guide. The strategy guide explained in detail how to complete this instance dungeon. I'm just following the instructions in the strategy guide. Ji Yuhan replied. Unbelievable. How did you get the strategy book for this quest? Lu Ban took a deep look at Ji Yuhan and decided to put this problem aside for the time being. He said, but this is good. With this Peach Tree of Immortality, things will be much easier. Lu Ban patted the Peach Tree of Immortality, and Guhan heard a new system notification. Instance dungeon quest completed. Successfully handed over the Peach Tree of Immortality to Lu Ban. Quest is being refreshed. Instance dungeon quest 2 failed. Instance dungeon quest completion requirements refreshed. Instance dungeon is being recreated. Hidden quest created. Find the living soil of the 9 heavens, water of the highest life, and flames of the 9 yang to revive this withered Peach Tree of Immortality. Did you hear the notification about the activation of the hidden quest? At the same time, look for the living soil of the 9 heavens, water of the highest life, and flames of the 9 yang? Lu Ban asked when he saw the surprised look on Guhan's face. That's right. Guhan nodded. That's right. Lu Ban breathed a sigh of relief. Now that the hidden quest has been triggered, the complicated 120 circle quest is no longer necessary. All you need to do is follow the main quest of the hidden quest, and the remaining quest will only have 10 circles. Very good. A smile finally appeared on Guhan's face. He then turned around and prepared to leave with Liunian Ling and Lu Shihua. Where are you going? Lu Ban quickly asked when he saw that Guhan was about to leave. Time is of the essence. Of course, I'm going to find these 3 items to complete the quest. Guhan replied quickly. With the activation of the hidden quest, the conventional strategy recorded in the strategy guide could no longer be used. However, Guhan remembered that in the strategy guide, there was also a quest to find these 3 items. According to the strategy guide, Guhan could also find these 3 items. So, Guhan could not wait to set off with his team. No. You don't need to look for those 3 items. I've already prepared them for you. Lu Ban said with a smug smile. Then, under the surprised gazes of Guhan, Liunian Ling, and Lu Shihua, he took out the 3 quest items from his body. This. Guhan lowered his head and grabbed the 3 quest items in his hand. Then, he saw the introduction panel of the 3 quest items. Living soil of the 9 heavens. Wondrous item. Swordsman cannot use it. The soil used by Goddess Nua when she created humans. It has the magical power to transform into a human body. Supreme life water. Wondrous item. Swordsman cannot use it. The innate water used by Goddess Nua when she created humans. It has the power to transform soil into a human body. True flames of the 9 heavens. Wondrous item. Swordsman cannot use it. The item with the most yang qi in the world. At the same time, it can replenish the yang qi needed by the soul without harming it. At the same time, it can train the soul and the body, allowing the two to merge again. The system's item introduction panel would never be fake. In other words, the 3 items provided by Lu Ban were all genuine quest items. Even if it was Jiyu Han, he had never thought that the quest item would appear in front of him right after he received the quest. Therefore, Jiyu Han couldn't help but feel a little dumbfounded. His face revealed a rare expression of not knowing what to do. Are you very surprised? Are you very surprised? Seeing Guhan's expression, Lu Ban smiled even more happily. If this was a normal instance dungeon, I would definitely let you look for it yourself. This is also the fun of instance dungeons. However, the situation is urgent. The longer a human's soul stays in this dungeon, the weaker it will be. If it stays for more than a week, I'm afraid it will completely disappear. So, I won't waste your time. Before you enter this dungeon, I've already asked Artoria and the others to bring these items from their respective places to make it easier for you to complete your task. There's such a thing. Liuyan Ling and Lu Shihua looked at Lu Ban dumbly. This was the first time they had encountered such a way to complete an instance dungeon. Chapter 1306. System, Hidden Instance Dungeon Quest 2 completed. You have successfully found the living soil of the 9 heavens, the water of supreme life, and the true flames of the 9 yang. Quests are being refreshed. System, Hidden Instance Dungeon Quest 3 generated. Find the 12 sword maidens scattered across this world. After Guhan kept the 3 items into his dimensional pocket, a new quest prompt popped up. This time, Guhan was required to find the 12 sword maidens. This time, however, Guhan was smarter. He did not run out like before. Instead, he looked at Lu Ban and asked, "Are these 12 sword maidens with you?" "How smart. You managed to figure it out." Lu Ban laughed heartily as he pulled out another 12 sword maidens. Fleeting Time rolled his eyes at the sight of the sword maidens. "The NPC has prepared all the quest items for you. You don't even need to go out for a stroll. Is there really such a way to complete a quest? Haha. This is an urgent matter. There is no need to worry about such a small matter." Lu Ban laughed, trying his best to alleviate the awkwardness. Guhan did not say anything. Since the quest items had been delivered to him, there was no reason for him to reject them. Thus, he kept the 12 sword maidens into his dimensional pocket. As expected, the system prompt popped up again. System, Hidden Instance Dungeon Quest 3 completed. Successfully find the 12 sword maidens scattered across this world. Quest is being refreshed. System, Hidden Instance Dungeon Quest 4 generated. Use the Immortality Peach Tree to go to 6 different sealed locations and summon the souls that are drifting within them. Seeing the quest prompt, Guhan breathed a sigh of relief. Lu Ban would not be helping him complete this quest, would he? Cough. Although I would like to help you complete the 4th Hidden Instance Dungeon quest, this is a quest that you, Guhan, have to complete personally. It would be inappropriate for me to do it on your behalf. Lu Ban's reply caused everyone's expressions to relax. Sigh. Why does an NPC have to help you complete all the quests? Isn't this a little too strange? Dare I ask where the 6 different seals are? I'll go and complete the mission right now. Jiyu Han immediately asked Lu Ban. Time waits for no one. There's no hurry. I'll have Artoria take you there later, but I have another story to tell you. It won't be too late for you to leave after listening to it. Lu Ban began to tell the story unhurriedly. This is the background of this dungeon world. 800 years ago, the Heavenly Court was very powerful. They destroyed our city and enslaved our people, so we, the Yuan Ku, joined forces with the humans. Master Lu Ban, I've already understood the background story of this instance dungeon. The 6 Emperor sword-level powerhouses launched a sneak attack on the Heavenly Court. You can omit the story before that. Guhan cut him off unceremoniously. Cough cough. Military Governor, you're truly amazing. You've even figured out most of the background story of this dungeon. Well then, this old man will continue. Lu Ban smiled awkwardly and continued. That day, the 6 Emperor sword-level powerhouses met in the Great Sage, Heaven's equals Water Curtain Cave to discuss ways to destroy the Heavenly Court. In the end, they came up with a very stable plan. The humans and the remaining forces of the Yuan Ku would cause trouble in North America and destroy the Heavenly Court's stronghold there. At the same time, they would use the power and banner of several Emperor sword-level sword-wielders to mislead the Heavenly Court into thinking that we were planning to settle down in North America and fight against the Heavenly Court. In order to maintain their rule, the Heavenly Court would definitely send the desolate-level Yuan Ku to destroy the rebels in North America. This would give us a chance. That was the truth. When our forces uprooted 90% of the Heavenly Court's stronghold in North America and trapped the last of the Heavenly Court's forces in Los Angeles, the Heavenly Court did not just sit back and watch. As expected, the Heavenly Court didn't just sit back and watch. They actually sent 3 desolate-level Yuan bandits and a large number of core forces to North America. This round trip will take at least 2 days. After our 6 Emperor sword-level powerhouses confirmed that the Heavenly Court's army would be there for a day, they came out of hiding and attacked the core area of the Heavenly Court. The entire process was as easy as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. The Heavenly Court did not have any decent resistance before the 6 Emperor sword-level powerhouses killed their way to the soaring sky palace of the Golden Arches and surrounded the remaining 2 desolate-level Yuan Ku of the Heavenly Court. Although the desolate-level Yuan Ku is strong, it's definitely not a match for 6 powerhouses of the same level. We were confident that we could kill the 2 top powerhouses of the Heavenly Court within half a day. That way, we would have double the number of top powerhouses of the Heavenly Court. The Heavenly Court would not dare to kill us unscrupulously, and we could also develop and strengthen ourselves again. Up until now, our script could be said to be successful. The remaining 2 desolate-level Yuan Ku of the Heavenly Court were indeed no match for our 6 Emperor sword-level sword-bearers. Just as we were about to kill the 2 desolate-level Yuan Ku, another Emperor sword-level sword-bearer suddenly appeared from the depths of the Heavenly Palace. We never expected that after ruling and bewitching the humans for more than 30 years, the humans who were still children back then would completely believe in the Heavenly Court's words. They thought that humans and the Heavenly Court were one and the same. They were not sword-bearers, but sword immortals taught by the Heavenly Court. And among these sword immortals, there was an extremely terrifying Emperor sword-level sword-bearer. He was so deeply brainwashed by the Heavenly Court that he did not listen to the advice of the other 2 Emperor sword-level sword-bearers in the team and attacked us directly. Moreover, his abilities were extremely terrifying. He could fight against 3 Emperor sword-level powerhouses alone and block the attacks of 3 Emperor sword-level powerhouses. In this way, the Heavenly Court would have 5 Emperor sword-level combatants, which is almost the same as our 6. Although they would still be able to gain the upper hand in the end, it would be impossible for them to destroy the other party within a day or 2. Faced with such a situation, our 6 Emperor sword-level powerhouses decided to give up on the sneak attack and leave the Heavenly Court. This was to prevent the 3 Emperor sword-level powerhouses from the Heavenly Court from returning and surrounding our people. If that happened, the entire situation would be reversed and we would be the ones facing the threat of death. It's a pity that we were a step too slow. The Heavenly Court troops who were heading to America came to their senses halfway and started to rush back at full speed. In the end, just as our 6 Emperor sword-level combatants escaped from the Heavenly Court, they were surrounded near Hengdian. In the end, 11 Emperor sword-level powerhouses engaged in an earth-shattering battle in the entire Zhejiang province. The Heavenly Court, which had the Jade Emperor and the Emperor sword-level swordwielder who could fight against 3 Emperor sword-level powerhouses alone, undoubtedly had a huge advantage. Our 6 Emperor sword-level powerhouses were already at an absolute disadvantage. In the end, the 6 of them decided to fight with their lives on the line. They blew up their physical bodies and covered their souls as they escaped. However, this final fight was both a success and a failure. No one would have thought that the power of the 6 Emperor sword-level powerhouses self-destructing at the same time would be so great. Not only did their souls not escape safely, but they were also torn apart by the impact of the self-destruction. In the end, they landed in 6 different locations and became wandering ghosts that had lost their self-awareness. After our people found these 6 locations, they were unable to gather these scattered souls. Therefore, they set up a suppression technique in those locations to ensure that the souls of these 6 Emperor sword-level powerhouses would not dissipate over time. Instead, they would remain floating in their original locations. After killing all of our high-level powerhouses, the Heavenly Court could be said to be completely invincible in this world. They launched a crazy purge against us, causing our remaining resistance forces to suffer heavy losses. We could only hide in some extremely secretive places and drag out an ignoble existence. As the saying goes, once the cunning hare is killed, the hound will be cooked. When most of our people were killed, the Heavenly Court, which was afraid that the Sword Celestial would come to his senses and return to being a sword wielder, surrounded and killed the executioner that they had trained. It was only then that the sinful executioner finally came to his senses. However, it was too late. He alone was no match for 5 desolate-level Yuan Ku. In the end, he could only do the same as the 6 of us. His physical body self-destructed, and his soul dissipated, drifting in an area. After that, we spent the rest of our days dragging out an ignoble existence. It wasn't until a month ago that we found a notebook left behind by Tongtian Jendi. Only then did we know that Tongtian and the others had a bad premonition during the meeting. They had left a trace of their soul origin in the Peach Tree of Immortality in the Water Curtain Cave. The power of the Peach Tree of Immortality is very magical. It can protect a human's soul for thousands of years. Therefore, all you need to do is to bring the Peach Tree of Immortality to the place where the soul fragments of the 6 Emperor sword-level powerhouses are drifting. Then, you will be able to naturally attract their souls and reunite the souls of these powerhouses. Then, you will have the opportunity to revive them. As long as these 6 Emperor sword-level powerhouses can all be revived, we will have enough power to challenge the Heavenly Court. In the end, we will completely destroy the Heavenly Court and return peace to this world. Lu Ban finally finished his long speech. Then, he impatiently took a big gulp of water and muttered, "I know that this is all a made-up background story and a requirement for the mission. Why do I sound so confident? It's as if I've experienced it myself. So, Master Lu Ban, you've said so much just to tell us that once we gather the souls of the 6 Emperor sword-level powerhouses, we can successfully complete this instance dungeon, right?" Liuyan Ling said excitedly. This sounded very easy. With the help of 6 Emperor sword-level powerhouses, in addition to her and Guhan's power, dealing with the Heavenly Court should not be a problem. No. I've said so much because the system forced me to. Lu Ban rolled his eyes. If it wasn't for the system forcing me to explain the background story to you, I wouldn't have said so much nonsense. Chapter 1307. The first location is here, Artoria said coldly as she pointed at a dilapidated building in front of her. Ji Yuhan looked up and saw a plaque with words that he could barely make out. Mausoleum Museum of Emperor Qin. I know this place. This is the famous terracotta army of Emperor Qin's mausoleum before the Great Calamity. I even went here when I passed by Sharangssi last year. Liuyan Ling said excitedly. You came here last year? Why are you so rash? You'll alert the Heavenly Court. Artoria frowned when she heard Liuyan Ling's words. We want to resurrect the 6 saints, but the Heavenly Court is aware of this, so they didn't destroy the souls of the 6 saints. Instead, they sent their elite forces to guard this place to kill those of us who want to resurrect the souls. That's why they've strictly forbidden us from approaching these 6 locations since hundreds of years ago to avoid arousing the guards' vigilance. How could you come here last year? Artoria, have you forgotten? We came here from another dimension, so naturally, Ling went to the terracotta army of another dimension. It's impossible for her to affect your world. Guhan explained on behalf of Liunian Ling. Artoria nodded and looked non-committal. Although I don't know why Lord Lu Ban is willing to trust you and hand over the 3 Xiantian materials that we've painstakingly obtained to you, and even let you collect the souls of the 6 saints, since this is Lord Lu Ban's order, I, Artoria, will obey. However, since this is Master Lu Ban's order, I, Artoria, will obey it. However, this operation is very important and dangerous. You must listen to my command. If not, you will not be able to return to your world. Artoria said to Ji Yuhan and fleeting time Ling. That's right. Ji Yuhan said. All right. Tell us your plan, we'll listen to you. Guhan didn't want to argue with Artoria, so he nodded and agreed without hesitation. We've already investigated this place. The heavenly court guarding this place isn't very powerful. We can easily defeat them, but that's not the main problem. The main problem is how to stop them from sending messages to the heavenly court, the heavenly court said. We have a total of 6 places to collect the souls of the saints, and the other 5 places are currently under the control of the heavenly court. If we let the people here spread the news, I'm afraid they will set up a trap for us in the other 5 places. Even if they don't set up an inescapable net, the people in the 5 places only need to destroy the saint's soul completely, and our chance will be wasted. So we must obtain the saint's soul as soon as possible, and at the same time, make sure that the heavenly court subordinates can't spread the news. Understood. This is a very correct plan. Guhan nodded, but said worriedly, then the crux of the problem is how to stop these immortals from spreading the news. So how did they pass the message? As far as I know, the heavenly court's Yuan Ku generally has the 1,000-mile sound transmission technique. If they want to send a message, it's just a matter of a thought. I'm afraid we won't be able to stop them so easily. Of course, I've already thought of this, so I've already asked Kel Thuzad to set up a magic circle around the area. A simple 1,000-mile sound transmission technique can't send the message out. Only by activating the most central communication immortal circle of Emperor Qin's Mausoleum Museum can we break through Kel Thuzad's blockade, Artoria said. This means that we must first control that communication immortal circle. Guhan thought for a while. This isn't difficult. As long as we open the void gate, get close to the communication immortal circle through the void gate, and then kill all the immortals around the immortal circle. That's right, but the immortal circle is guarded by a great overarching golden immortal. He only needs 10 seconds to activate the immortal circle with all his strength. And we can't destroy the immortal circle. Otherwise, the moment the immortal circle is destroyed, the immortal circle on the other side will be able to sense it, and the heavenly court will know that something has happened here. Artoria said. 10 seconds. Guhan smiled. No problem, it's not a difficult thing. Artoria looked at Guhan, and her eyes flashed with some helplessness and dissatisfaction. Now is not the time to talk big. I believe you can kill a great overarching golden immortal, but a great overarching golden immortal is not so easy to control. Once he grasps the opportunity to activate the immortal circle, we're finished. So we have to come up with a complete set of tactics to ensure that this great overarching golden immortal can't activate the immortal circle. I've done a comprehensive understanding of the great overarching golden immortal guarding here and designed a perfect battle plan. All you need to do is... Artoria spent a full 20 minutes explaining her elaborate battle plan to Guhan. Guhan looked relatively serious, but Liunian Ling was having a headache listening to her. How did Artoria come up with such a complicated battle plan? Not to mention whether this battle plan was correct or not, could the 3 of them really coordinate such a complicated battle plan? Don't worry about her plan. When the time comes, the 2 of us will use our strongest moves to deal with that great overarching golden immortal. Guhan whispered in Liunian Ling's ear while Artoria was seriously explaining her plan and not in the mood to care about other things. A dark-faced, thick-bearded man in armor sat on top of the communication immortal formation in the immortal realm. He looked like a general. There was a silver whip in his right hand, 24 blue pearls floating above his head, and a mighty black tiger crouched behind him. When other people first saw this immortal, they would subconsciously think of him as an extremely mighty general. But who would have thought that this general's official title in the heavenly court was actually the god of wealth? That's right, this great overarching golden immortal was called Zhao Gongming. His original name was Lang, and his courtesy name was Gongming. He was also known as Zhao Shentan, Marshal Zhao Gong, and was one of the 4 marshals of Taoism. At the same time, he was the general of the Thunder Department and one of the 5 gods of plagues. At the same time, he was also the god of wealth, in charge of the wealth of the world. That ignorant Jade Emperor actually made me, a dignified great overarching golden immortal, come to this small place to be a guard. It's really abominable, abominable. From this sentence, it could be heard that Zhao Gongming was not willing to guard here. He was even very dissatisfied with the ruler of the heavenly court, the dignified Jade Emperor, Haotian. This dissatisfaction was even directly expressed through his mouth. The reason was very simple. Zhao Gongming had never taken the Jade Emperor seriously. Even though he had become a subject of the Jade Emperor, he still only had his master, sect leader Tongtian, in his heart. Although Zhao Gongming's mouth was constantly cursing, he did not relax. Not even the slightest movement in the surroundings could escape Zhao Gongming's senses. That was why Zhao Gongming was able to react the moment the void fluctuated. He immediately held all his weapons and magic treasures in his hands. The black tiger also scurried up to Zhao Gongming's crotch and roared at the slowly opening void gate in the sky. I'm just annoyed now. I didn't expect someone to come to me. Seeing the void gate open, Zhao Gongming did not immediately trigger the immortal communication formation. Instead, he raised the 24 oceanic calming pearls in his hand, in a state where they could be triggered at any time. As long as the person in the void gate made a slight move, these 24 oceanic calming pearls could be directly smashed to destroy the person's soul. These oceanic calming pearls were primordial spiritual treasures. There were 24 pearls in a string. They emitted 5-colored rays of light, dazzled the enemy's 5 senses, and were as powerful as the power of the 4 seas. Even if a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal carried 24 oceanic calming pearls on his back, one of his 3 souls and 7 spirits would be smashed to pieces. It was really powerful. Zhao Gongming had used this magic treasure to beat his opponent to the point of fleeing. Zhao Gongming had always believed in one principle when fighting, and that was to strike first and gain the upper hand. As long as the enemy showed his head, he would not waste time talking nonsense and would smash his most powerful magic weapon. Relying on this method, Zhao Gongming could be said to have made an illustrious name in the untainted land back then. Against a guy like him who would start fighting without saying anything, his mouth was completely useless. This made many protagonists who were good at talking feel very uncomfortable. But this time, Zhao Gongming miscalculated. Because before the oceanic calming pearls in Zhao Gongming's hand smashed down, countless sword chi flew out from the void gate, beating Zhao Gongming, who wanted to make the first move, into a sorry state. Zhao Gongming only felt a wave of chaos. When he finally extinguished all the sword chi, 2 women and a man had already appeared in front of him. Artoria. Zhao Gongming was the first to recognize King Arthur. Now, King Arthur was basically a flag of all the resistance and was also one of the few Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals among the resistance. Zhao Gongming had fought with Artoria more than once and even suffered a small loss once or twice. Zhao Gongming could be said to have a deep understanding of how difficult it was to deal with this opponent. Especially this time, Artoria actually brought a man and a woman with her. Zhao Gongming was not stupid. Since these 2 people could appear with Artoria, it meant that the strength of these 2 people made Artoria feel at ease. They should at least have the strength of Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals. Thinking of this, Zhao Gongming had the intention to retreat. He did not care about the Jade Emperor, nor did he want to sacrifice his life for the Jade Emperor's grand hegemony. But after all, he was a figure whose true spirit was on the list of deification. If he just ran away without doing anything, the Jade Emperor would certainly not let go of the opportunity to punish him. Therefore, Zhao Gongming decided to immediately escape after activating the immortal communication formation. He would not stay for a second longer. This way, he could be considered to have done his part. Chapter 1308. According to the plan, you'll use your sword qi to keep Zhao Gongming's oceanic calming pearl busy. I'll take the opportunity to use victory and contract. Before Artoria could finish her sentence, she froze. This was because Guhan and Liuanian Ling didn't act according to her plan at all. Instead, they rushed to Zhao Gongming's side and started a melee fight with him using the sword maidens in their hands. You're crazy. Zhao Gongming's close combat ability is too strong, only. Before Artoria could finish her sentence, she was dumbfounded. Myriad swords technique. Liuanian Ling roared, and then Liuanian Ling's blade shot out tens of thousands of sword qi, all of which pierced Zhao Gongming's body in an instant. Zhao Gongming let out a blood-curdling scream as the armor he wore shattered into pieces, and countless bloody holes appeared on his body. Chaos sword technique, chaos splitter. Not to be outdone, Ji Yuhan fiercely chopped down on Zhao Gongming's head with his qi sword. If Zhao Gongming had not dodged in time and only lost a bunch of his hair, Zhao Gongming's head would have been chopped off. Wow! Where did these two lunatics come from? Why are they so powerful? Zhao Gongming let out a strange cry. He'd never imagined that he'd meet opponents who were even more ruthless than him. Without saying a word, they launched a fierce attack on him with their ultimate move. They didn't even bother to greet him. This was too much. What was more frightening was that these two humans were both stronger than him. He couldn't even defeat one of them, let alone both of them charging at him together. Zhao Gongming only managed to block for a moment before he felt his magic power drain rapidly. In less than 10 minutes, he'd probably die at the hands of these two freaks. That's right, Artoria hadn't made a move yet. If she did, then Zhao Gongming would die for sure. Thinking of this, Zhao Gongming didn't dare activate the communication immortal formation anymore. He directly tore open the void and fled, only thinking of escaping from these two terrifying fellows. Miss Artoria, I'll leave the rest of the minions here to you. Don't let them escape. The two of us will go after this Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. As soon as Guhan finished speaking, he and Liuanian Ling rushed into the void, leaving Artoria standing there in a daze. That's it. Artoria looked at the communication immortal formation that was now under her control. She hadn't expected that the grand, precise, and impeccable battle plan that she had spent so much time and 20 minutes just talking would not be of any use. In the end, the two humans' random attacks had driven Zhao Gongming away. Kel Thuzad. Inform everyone to move out. Leave no one alive. Artoria sighed and freed herself from her disappointment. Then, she began to command her men to clear out the heavenly court's troops in Emperor Qin's mausoleum. At the same time, in the void, Zhao Gongming was engaged in an extremely difficult escape. He constantly tried to use the sea calming pearl in his hand to send his opponent flying, but the man's sword seemed to have eyes and easily blocked his sea calming pearl. The remaining woman ignored Zhao Gongming and continued to unleash sword qis at Zhao Gongming as if they were free. How could Zhao Gongming block such an attack? Another fleeting time sword qi sliced off half of the black tiger he was riding on. It looked like it was on the verge of death. Zhao Gongming, who pitted his mount, could only stop helplessly and retract his 24 sea calming pearls. At the same time, he raised his hands high and said with a bitter smile, "Stop fighting. I surrender. I'll be your captive, okay? This black tiger has been with me for tens of thousands of years. I really can't let it die here." Hearing its master's words, the black tiger under him opened its eyes intelligently. It looked at Zhao Gongming with a touched and gentle gaze. For a moment, there was an urge to cry. This was the scene that girls couldn't stand the most. Liuanian Ling's attitude softened on the spot. However, Guhan didn't care about this. He coldly pulled out his celestial extinguished sword and said mercilessly, "Continue to run, I won't let you go." "Wait, kid, where did you get that sword in your hand?" However, what Guhan didn't expect was that after seeing the celestial extinguished sword, Zhao Gongming's gaze never left the sword. This wasn't a greedy gaze towards the sword. Instead, It was the gaze of a child who saw his father. That's not something you need to know. Guhan replied coldly. No. This is the celestial extinguished sword, right? This is definitely the celestial extinguished sword. It can't be wrong. It's impossible for me to recognize Master's weapon wrongly. This is clearly the celestial extinguished sword of the four immortal exterminating sword. The more Zhao Gongming spoke, the more agitated he became. In the next second, something that surprised Guhan happened. Zhao Gongming actually knelt in front of Guhan and said with an extremely agitated and sincere tone, "Friend, if you want my life, just take it. I won't have any complaints. I just beg you to tell me, how did you get this celestial extinguished sword? Have you seen the owner of this celestial extinguished sword? As long as you can solve the doubts in my heart, I'll be satisfied even if I die now. The owner of the celestial extinguished sword. I'm afraid the owner he's talking about is the Tongtian sect leader that celestial extinguish and immortal exterminating swords mentioned." Guhan's thoughts changed. He gave Liuyan Ling a look to calm down, then turned to Zhao Gongming and said, "If you want me to believe you, hand over your 24 Dinghai pearls and your silver whip to me and put on this restraining device. I'll believe you and tell you about this sword." Handing over his most important weapon and artifact, and putting on restraining device to restrict his power to the level of an ordinary person was something a normal universe-level Yuan Ku wouldn't be willing to do even if he died. However, Zhao Gongming didn't hesitate at all. He threw the 24 Dinghai pearls and his weapon in front of Guhan. He also obediently cut off his connection with the Dinghai pearls so that Guhan could directly put the pearls into his dimensional pocket. This way, unless Guhan opened his dimensional pocket himself, Zhao Gongming wouldn't be able to find his 24 Dinghai pearls for the rest of his life. After that, he obediently put on the restraining device. Guhan didn't have this thing, but after entering the game, Shen used the system's privilege to give Guhan dozens of such devices and put them in his dimensional pocket. These were the best restraining devices. As long as those Yuan Ku were willing to wear them, even a desolation-level Yuan Ku could be restrained. After Zhao Gongming completed all the restraining devices according to Guhan's request, he was no longer a threat to Guhan. Guhan left the void with Zhao Gongming and found an empty ruin. He moved a table and chairs over and sat down with Liuyan Ling to chat with Zhao Gongming. "I got this sword by accident. Ji Yu had made up a story. At that time, I was still young, and I lived the life of being chased by your heavenly court. One day, when I was being chased by you, I accidentally fell off a cliff and came across a cave, where I found this sword. Celestial extinguished sword found in the cave. How could celestial extinguished sword be hidden in a cave?" Zhao Gongming said in disbelief after listening to Guhan's narration. "You are already my prisoner. Your life is in my hands at any time. I have no need to lie to you, and I can't be bothered to lie to you," Guhan said disdainfully and casually. This was the most trustworthy attitude. After seeing Guhan's attitude, Zhao Gongming also believed about 70% to 80%. Yes, there was no need for Guhan to lie to him. Later, I walked to the sword and found that it was a stone sword, and there was a stone tablet beside the sword. On the stone tablet, it said, "Those who can pass through my immortal slaying formation and come here are all fated people. They can hold the two swords. If the two swords reveal their true bodies, they will be the direct disciples of sect leader Tongtian and will revitalize the tribe of Jie." Guhan made up such a cool adventure plot according to the routine of those online novels. Celestial execution formation. Isn't the celestial execution formation a killing formation? Won't the mortals who enter it be torn apart by the sword qi immediately? Why does it have the function of selecting disciples? After listening to Guhan's narration, Zhao Gongming thought in puzzlement. Zhao Gongming knew about the celestial execution formation. Naturally, he knew the real function of the celestial execution formation. He really didn't remember that this formation had the function of selecting disciples. That's right. Perhaps Master wanted to choose a mortal who could not be torn apart by the sword qi of the immortal slaying sword formation. Only such a person could become Master's direct disciple. Zhao Gongming's imagination began to fill in the gaps, and he took the initiative to come up with a reasonable explanation for Ji Han. No. You said 2 swords just now. Is there a second sword besides Celestial Extinguish Sword? Zhao Gongming asked excitedly. That's right. Besides Celestial Extinguish Sword, there's also Celestial Execution Sword. Guhan took out the Celestial Execution Sword from his dimensional pocket and placed the 2 swords in front of Zhao Gongming. Zhao Gongming didn't expect that he could see Celestial Extinguish Sword and Celestial Execution Sword in his lifetime. Now, he no longer had any doubts about Guhan's identity. He hugged Guhan in his arms and said with tears in his eyes, "Little junior brother, I'm your senior brother." Chapter 1309. Senior brother? What makes you say you're my senior brother? You'd better give me a clear explanation, or I'll kill you right now. Upon hearing Zhao Gongming's words, Guhan's expression changed dramatically, and he threatened him directly. Junior brother, you don't know that I'm also Master's direct disciple. We're genuine senior brother and junior brother. Zhao Gongming immediately said excitedly. How do I know you're not lying to me? Master didn't tell me anything other than his name, let alone that he has a senior brother named Zhao Gongming. Why should I believe you? Guhan said with a cold face. Do I still need evidence? Who in the heavenly court doesn't know that I, Zhao Gongming, am Master's disciple? This is something that everyone in the world knows. What evidence do I need? Zhao Gongming said in annoyance. He scratched his head hard and then slapped it hard. Little junior brother, don't tell me you don't know anything about our Master's great achievements. What great achievements? Guhan showed a confused expression and continued to fabricate nonsense. To tell you the truth, after I got these 2 swords, I've been practicing hard in that cave. Recently, when I came out of the mountain, I encountered this incident and was invited by Miss Artoria to rebel against the heavenly court. I see. It seems that I need to tell you the story of our tribe of Jie, junior brother. Zhao Gongming coughed and cleared his throat. Then, he spent a total of 4 hours narrating the investiture of the God's War. Of course, Zhao Gongming's focus was on how shameless the tribe of enlightenment was, how they bullied the weak and even brought out their master, the Primeval Lord of Heaven, to bully the juniors. In the end, the sect leader couldn't stand it anymore and set up the Immortal Slaying Sword Formation and the Innumerable Immortal Formation to avenge his disciples. In the end, the Primeval Lord of Heaven and Taishang Laojun colluded with foreign enemies and attracted 2 sages from the west. They worked together to break the Immortal Slaying Sword Formation of the sect leader of Tongtian, so that in the end, the Immortal Slaying Sword Formation was taken by those shameless villains of the tribe of enlightenment. How abominable! Zhao Gongming's narration was obviously very subjective. He put sect leader Tongtian in the position of justice, while the 4 enemies of sect leader Tongtian were the villains. Naturally, Guhan successfully blocked out the subjective color in this narration and broke down the few pieces of information that were important to him. Firstly, both the Qingpin sword and the 4 immortal slaying swords were indeed the treasured swords of sect leader Tongtian, and sect leader Tongtian was indeed their old master. Number 2, since the beginning of time, the 7 most powerful people in the world were known as sages. These sages were so powerful that they could split the heavens and earth apart, refine the earth, water, wind, and fire, and return the entire world to primal chaos. They could even create a small world with a single thought. This was an unbelievable realm. Any saint-level existence could beat up the Jade Emperor and other top desolate-level existences like Yuan Ku. From this point, it was very likely that the 7 sages had already surpassed the limits of Emperor Sword and Primal Desolate level. They had reached a level that only existed in the imagination of humans. Existences like these could probably crush the entire Yangjing city to death with one hand. Number 3, among all the 7 sages, sect leader Tongtian was ranked second. Apart from sect leader Tongtian's master, sect leader Tongtian was the most powerful. He could fight 4 sages at the same time. Number 4, the fairy slaying sword formation was the most powerful treasure among all the innate cardinal treasures. With the fairy slaying sword formation, one could fight 4 sages at the same time. Therefore, sect leader Tongtian's power was not unrelated to the fairy slaying sword formation. Let me think about it. After Zhao Gongming finished speaking, Ji Yuhan pressed her head while telling the others around her to keep quiet. She continued to speak to herself. After listening to Zhao Gongming's narration and combining it with the truth that he had learned from celestial extermination and celestial slaying swords, Guhan felt like he had grasped the truth of this world. At the moment, Guhan had already found out the truth from celestial extermination and celestial extermination swords. The mastermind behind the entire world was sect leader Tongtian. The Great Destruction was also very likely the result of the battle between the celestial extermination swords and sect leader Tongtian. If these saint-level existences could really achieve one world with one thought, then the origin of the two-dimensional worlds might have been created by the sages. However, following the battle between the celestial extermination swords and sect leader Tongtian, the barrier between the normal world and the two-dimensional world was broken. As a result, the entire world was in chaos. As for why the celestial extermination swords fought with sect leader Tongtian, even a pig could easily guess. It was because sect leader Tongtian, who had lost to the four sages, felt extremely indignant. At the same time, he deeply hated this world. Therefore, he wanted to refine the earth, water, wind, and fire of the entire world so that the world could return to chaos and reopen the entire world. However, the Primeval Lord of Heaven and the other sages did not want this world to be destroyed. Therefore, they took out the celestial extermination swords and fought with sect leader Tongtian. In the end, they successfully defeated sect leader Tongtian and sealed him. Meanwhile, the celestial extermination swords were destroyed in this earth-shattering battle. As for the other sages, they were either seriously injured in the battle or simply died in the battle. Therefore, after the battle ended, no one cared about the damaged celestial extermination swords and let them fall into the human world. They did not repair the world that was destroyed in the dimension wall. As a result, humans were left to live in the abyss of suffering. Anyway, the sages did not care about the lives of humans. It was enough as long as the world was still intact. After deducing this information, the truth of the entire world seemed to be clear at a glance. Guhan could take the research report and announce this truth to the humans in the world. This was definitely a discovery that shocked the entire human world. For thousands of years, humans had been painstakingly searching for the cause of the Great Apocalypse, but they could not find a correct answer. Now, with Ji Yuhan's seemingly flawless explanation, the problem that had perplexed humanity for 1,000 years was finally solved. Ji Yuhan could also receive the Nobel Prize in Literature, the Nobel Prize in History, the Nobel Prize in Truth. In any case, all the awards should be given to Ji Yuhan. However, very soon, Guhan realized that this explanation could not fully explain the truth of the matter. First of all, if the Great Apocalypse was really caused by the battle between the Grandmaster of Heaven, the celestial extermination swords, and the other sages, wouldn't the Grandmaster of Heaven's strength be a little too terrifying? During the Shang and Zhou dynasties thousands of years ago, the Grandmaster of Heaven, who possessed the celestial extermination swords, was still no match for the four sages. But now, the four sages and the celestial extermination swords couldn't even defeat him. If the Grandmaster of Heaven really had a lifespan of tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of years, wouldn't his growth speed be a little too fast in just a few thousand years? Secondly, according to Zhao Gongming, the Grandmaster of Heaven and the other sages were born and bred in this world. They existed in this world and were not Yuan Ku that came from other worlds and dimensions. Here came the problem. The Grandmaster of Heaven and the other sages didn't appear after the Great Apocalypse, so they didn't know their background. However, Guanyin Bodhisattva, the Jade Emperor, Sun Wukong, Yang Jian, Neza, and other immortals who were active in history all had the identity of Yuan Ku and came to this world through dimensional rifts. After they died, they were all sucked back into the dimensional vortex. This became extremely unreasonable. These immortals were not born and bred on Earth at all. They also came from the 2D world. Since they were born because of human imagination, the Primeval Lord of Heaven and the other sages were also born because of human imagination. This created a fatal contradiction. Finally, and also the most crucial point, there was the Sword Lady. Guhan's guess might be able to explain most of the doubts, but it couldn't explain the Sword Lady at all. Why were the Sword Ladies born? Why were they in such a state with the sword-bearers? Why did they naturally stand on the opposite side of Yuan Ku and fight to protect human beings? And what exactly was this sword essence? As for the Sword Lady's doubts, Guhan's guess could be said to be unable to explain any of them. As the most crucial point after the Great Apocalypse, if the Sword Lady's existence couldn't be explained, then the entire guess itself would be a castle in the air and wouldn't be able to withstand logical doubt. Oh, that's right, there was one more thing. Why did the leveler, Flowing Maple, suddenly appear in this world? Why did he say that he was a leveler like him? Could it be that the 6 sages in their world had also gone crazy and wanted to refine the entire world? There was also the Grandmaster of Heaven's Grandmaster. Although he had mentioned this person a few times, every time he mentioned this person, Zhao Gongming's face would be filled with fear and respect. He didn't even dare to say the Grandmaster's real name and could only respectfully address him as Grandmaster. In any case, in the end, Guhan felt that his guess was not very reliable. Perhaps he had figured out part of the truth, but there was still another part of the truth that was still deeply concealed and unknown to others. Little junior brother, you don't have to doubt my words. Any deity or human would know these things clearly. I'm definitely not lying to you, Zhao Gongming said very sincerely. I believe you. Senior brother. Guhan also gave Zhao Gongming an extremely sincere expression. That's good. Zhao Gongming laughed heartily. That's right, junior brother. Since you just came out from the cave, you definitely don't have your own Daoist name, right? Why don't you let me give you one? Daoist name? Guhan thought for a moment and felt that this Daoist name might be similar to a title, so he replied with a smile. There's no need for that. Master has already given me a Daoist name on the stone tablet. Oh, what is it? Zhao Gongming was instantly interested and asked curiously. Hongjun. Guhan said. Plop. Zhao Gongming fell to the ground. Chapter 1310. Junior brother. Is your Taoist name really Hongjun? Junior brother, is that really the Taoist name Master gave you? After Guhan revealed his Taoist name, Zhao Gongming kept asking him this question. It was as if he did not believe that the Prime of Tongtian would give Guhan this Taoist name. However, Zhao Gongming was right to be worried. The Taoist name was not given to Guhan by the Prime of Tongtian. It came from Rina Takasaka. Of course. What's wrong with this Taoist name? Guhan glanced at Liuanian Ling. Liuanian Ling shrugged her shoulders, indicating that she did not know the story behind this Taoist name. Master, what exactly are you thinking about? I really can't figure it out. Zhao Gongming looked at the sky blankly and mumbled to himself. Senior brother, what's wrong with this Taoist name? Senior brother, please tell me the truth. Ji Yuhan asked again. Sigh. I can't say it. I can't say it. Zhao Gongming shook his head helplessly. We don't have the right to mention this name. Otherwise, we will definitely incur the wrath of the heavens. However, since Master gave you this Taoist name, he must have his reasons. Don't ask too many questions. By the way, unless our senior and junior brothers ask, you must not tell them your Taoist name. Otherwise, you will encounter great trouble. Fine. Since senior brother doesn't want to say it, I won't ask anymore. Guhan waved his hand. However, please forgive me, senior brother. In order to keep our operation a secret, I can't release you for the time being. Senior brother, please stay here for a while. After we destroy the Heavenly Court, we will return you your freedom. You want to destroy the Heavenly Court? Are you kidding me? Zhao Dongming looked like he had just heard a very unfunny joke. His face was full of disbelief. Junior apprentice brother. Sigh. Junior apprentice brother, I admit that I can't beat you, but that doesn't mean that the quasi-sages in the Heavenly Court can't beat you. Your strength is still not enough in front of them. However, it won't be too late to talk about overthrowing the Heavenly Court after you continue to practice the immortal method taught by your master and become a sage to be. We can't wait that long. Guhan shook his head, and this time, I'm not dealing with the Heavenly Court alone. This time, we have found a way to resurrect the 6 sages from 800 years ago. I believe that as long as the 6 sages can be resurrected, we can defeat the heavenly court. It's not that simple. Zhao Gongming shook his head with a wry smile. That was 800 years ago. During these 800 years, the celestial court controlled the fate of this world. Those 6 sage-to-be couldn't. Wait, it's not completely impossible. Junior brother, do you really have the confidence to resurrect those 6 sage-to-be? That's right. I have the confidence to do so. Ji Yuhan nodded straightforwardly. Then it's easy. Zhao Gongming became excited. Actually, you're not the only one who wants to rebel against the heavenly court. Many of the brothers of the tribe of severity in the heavenly court have been dissatisfied with those 5 bastards for a long time. If you can really resurrect those 6 sage-to-be, we can help you secretly. Can I really? Are the brothers of the heavenly court really willing to help me? Guhan also asked excitedly. Of course. We're all restrained in the heavenly court by the list of deification. As long as you can destroy the list of deification after destroying the heavenly court and release our true spirits, we'll be truly free and free. The more Zhao Gongming spoke, the more excited he became. Then, he began to struggle to get rid of the restraints on his body. Junior brother, there's no time to lose. You have to trust me and release me. Then, I can contact those brothers for you. System, branch options received. Do you choose to trust Zhao Gongming's words and release Zhao Gongming to recruit troops in the heavenly court for you? Please note that Yuan Ku and Zhao Gongming may be telling the truth or lying. Please make a decision according to the player's own judgment. This was a very interesting thing. Now, the system had placed the decision in front of Guhan. At this time, Zhao Gongming was very likely to be deceiving Guhan. He wanted to help Guhan win his freedom through his lies. Perhaps, he would immediately report to the heavenly court when he returned to the heavenly court, causing Guhan's plan to fall short of success. Of course, what Zhao Gongming said was also very likely to be true. In that case, Guhan would undoubtedly get a great help in the heavenly court. According to Zhao Gongming, there were at least 20 Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals who were Guhan's brothers. If these Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals betrayed him at the same time, Guhan's side would have the combat power of 2 Emperor Swords. At this time, the decision was in Guhan's hands. Guhan's choice was very likely to determine the success or failure of the entire instance dungeon. Guhan. At the same time, Liuyan Ling also received the same system notification as Guhan. She called out to Guhan worriedly, "You must make a decision carefully." "I know." Guhan nodded. Under Zhao Gongming's expectant gaze, a silver-white sword gleam flashed and Zhao Gongming's head was separated from his neck. At the same time, countless sword chi crushed Zhao Gongming's head. At the same time, a small golden person flew out of Zhao Gongming's head. This was the primordial spirit of an immortal and also the last thing an immortal could rely on. "Junior brother, what are you doing? You killed your senior brother." Zhao Gongming questioned Guhan in fear and anger. "I'm sorry, senior brother." Guhan shook his head coldly. "This concerns the lives of tens of thousands of survivors behind me. Even if you're really my senior brother, I can't guarantee that you won't betray Master after spending so many years in the heavenly court. So I'm sorry, my senior brother. I can only send you on your way." "Good junior brother. Good junior brother. You're indeed meticulous and ruthless. No wonder Master chose you to be his disciple. Perhaps you can really revive our Jie school. All right, I'll use my life to fulfill your wish. I'm leaving," Zhao Gongming said emotionally after hearing Guhan's words. Then, his primordial spirit began to slowly disperse like a withering flower. Finally, it completely disappeared into the air. At the same time, a dimensional whirlpool slowly formed in the air and took everything of Zhao Gongming back. Obviously, Zhao Gongming was really dead. "Guhan, I feel that the two of us may have made the wrong choice. Your cheap senior brother seems to really want to help you," Liuyan Ling said with a guilty expression. Obviously, Zhao Gongming's last words before his death deeply shocked Liuyan Ling. "No. Your decision is very wise. This Zhao Gongming will never help us. He's an extremely cunning fellow. Back then, my unfilial son, Mordred, died because of Zhao Gongming's deceit. At some point, Artoria appeared behind Guhan and Liuyan Ling. It seemed that she had heard the conversation between Zhao Gongming and Guhan. You have a child. However, Guhan's attention was not on the main point of Artoria's words at all. Instead, his attention was on his unfilial son, Mordred. When did Artoria have a child? Guhan had no idea. It was my sister Morgan who stole my genetic factors and used forbidden magic to create an artificial human. Although I'm willing to admit it, she is indeed my child. An unfilial son who thinks about how to kill me all day long. Artoria was very distressed, but she also said with some nostalgia. So that's how it is. Guhan unconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. Killing this guy was an extremely wise decision. He only said something to make you feel guilty before he died. That's the crudest way to say it. You didn't even realize that. You're too stupid. Let me tell you, we can't trust anyone except our own people now, Artoria said as she walked into the distance. Hurry up, the great saint's soul in that stronghold is still waiting for you to collect it with the peach tree of immortality. It seems that I've made the right decision in at least one aspect. Looking at Artoria's back, Guhan said to Liuyan Ling with a smile, at least from now on, Miss Artoria sees us as her own people. Is that so? Liuyan Ling gave Guhan a meaningful look. Why do I feel that you're especially happy after Artoria sees you as one of us? The people led by Artoria had already cleared out all the immortals in Emperor Qin's terracotta army. This allowed Guhan to collect the great saint's souls scattered in Emperor Qin's mausoleum into the peach tree of immortality as quickly as possible. Guhan only needed to hold the peach tree of immortality and walk around the mausoleum once. Some of the faint blue light would automatically be attracted by the true spirit in the peach tree of immortality and absorbed into it. The whole process would take no more than an hour. We need to speed up. The Heavenly Court changes guards every 3 days, which means that they'll be aware of our plan in 3 days at the latest. You've already wasted a lot of time chasing Zhao Gongming. You need to speed up. All right, I'll listen to you, Ji Yuhan said straightforwardly. Then, under Artoria's lead, Guhan and Liuyan Ling spent nearly 2 days clearing out the Heavenly Court's guards at the peak of Mount Tai, the source of the Yellow River, the coast of the East Sea, and the hidden dragon forest. They collected the souls of 5 great saints. The whole process was quite simple. Just like how they dealt with Zhao Gongming, Artoria opened a void gate, and the 3 of them surrounded each other and gave each other a good beating. That was the end of the battle. The smoothness of the process completely exceeded Artoria's expectations. At the same time, she was deeply aware of Guhan's terrifying strength. Not only did he master the power of nomological laws, but he also completely crushed her in swordsmanship. If she fought with Guhan, she might not even have a 10% chance of winning. Where did such a terrifying human come from? All right, we've gathered all 5 places. Where's the last one? Right here. Artoria pointed to the location of old Yangjing City on the map. It's around this founding emperor memorial hall. Chapter 1311. The Great Ancestor Memorial Hall? What is this place? Why does it feel so weird? There's not a single person around. Fleeting time, Ling asked as he felt a chill run down his spine when he arrived at the final boundary. Because there's an existence here that even the immortals of the Heavenly Court are afraid of. Artoria carefully looked at a building in the middle of the square. The very existence of this building was very strange. After more than 1,000 years, no matter how prosperous this square was back then, all the buildings had basically become dilapidated ruins. Only this building in front of her remained the same as it was 1,000 years ago. Apart from a lot of dust that had accumulated on it, there was almost no change. There wasn't even a trace of damage. It was exactly the same as it was 1,000 years ago, completely isolated from the erosion of time. How can this be? Isn't this too strange? Could this building be independent of time itself? Fleeting Time's Rin said in disbelief as he caressed the sturdy wall. Because a great man is buried here. Artoria's eyes were filled with fear as she looked at the building and said, when he was alive, all the gods and immortals in the world trembled in fear because of him. There was no place for these gods and Buddhas in the world. Only after he passed away did these hypocrites resurface. So even after he died, the people of the heavenly court didn't dare to go near this area. Even when they walked, they would avoid this area. Even time doesn't dare to erode his power. That's why it's still in its original state after 1,000 years. But thanks to the protection of this great man, the souls of the great sage scattered here are the safest. The people of the heavenly court don't even dare to go near this place. As long as we don't offend him, we can quickly complete our mission. By the way, you'd better stay away from this building. Don't be disrespectful to this great man, Artoria said in a very respectful manner and tone. Scary. Fleeting time Ling snuck a peek at the building, and felt a deep sense of shock in his heart. It was as if someone was knocking on his heart. This gave Liunian Ling a big fright. This descendant of the Liunian family had lived for so long, but she had never seen such a terrifying building. Just the power of its death was enough to make an immortal sword wielder tremble in fear. Let's not talk about it. Let's hurry and collect the souls of the great sage here. Ji Yuhan also felt that this place was strange and frightening. Without saying a word, he used the immortality peach tree to collect the souls of the great sages in the area. The entire mission was carried out very quickly. There were no interruptions at all, and the work was unexpectedly completed. System: Hidden Instance Dungeon Quest 4 completed. All the wandering souls have been collected. System: Hidden Instance Dungeon Quest 5 has been generated. Please return to Lu Ban's side immediately and prepare to resurrect the deceased great sage. When the last soul floated into the peach tree of immortality, Guhan and Liunian Ling heard the dungeon's notification at the same time. This made Liunian Ling heave a sigh of relief. She did not expect this mission, which took the longest time, to be completed so easily and happily. All right. All the collection missions have been completed. Let's go back quickly, Artoria urged them. No. To everyone's surprise, Guhan shook his head and rejected. It's not time to go back yet. Don't we still have the soul of a great sage that we haven't collected? That's impossible. We've collected the souls of 6 great sages. I've calculated it can't be wrong, Artoria said in shock. That's right. Guhan, didn't you receive the mission notification? The souls of the 6 great sages have indeed been collected. Liunian Ling also whispered in Guhan's ear. These 6 souls have indeed been collected, but have you forgotten that there's still the soul of the 7th great sage? Guhan said faintly. You're absolutely crazy. You actually want to resurrect the soul of the accomplice of the heavenly court. On the way to the destination, Artoria chattered in Guhan's ear. She still did not understand why Guhan wanted to resurrect the 7th great sage. That guy was obviously the culprit who caused the failure of the 6 great sages 800 years ago. Yes, that's right. The person Guhan was planning to resurrect at this time was the Emperor Sword-level swordbearer who had been brainwashed by the heavenly court to become a sword immortal 800 years ago. It was also with the help of this swordbearer that the heavenly court blocked the attack of the 6 great sages and delayed the return of the rest of the desolation-level powerhouses. In the end, the 6 great sages were forced to self-destruct, causing the remaining human forces and Yuan Ku's forces to live a miserable life of hiding for 800 years. However, this swordbearer's fate was not good either. In the end, the heavenly court killed him after he had outlived his usefulness, and he also ended up self-destructing. His soul floated somewhere in this world, just like the 6 great sages. The enemy of our enemy is our friend. Since she was betrayed by the heavenly court, her heart must be filled with hatred towards the heavenly court. So if we can resurrect her, she will definitely stand on our side. Guhan answered Artoria. That's not necessarily true. His hands were stained with our blood back then. Maybe the first thing he will do after resurrection will still be to kill us, Artoria said. Believe me, she will stand on our side, Guhan said with certainty. No one knew where his confidence came from. All right, even if he will stand on our side, the most important problem is that we don't have his true soul. Without his true soul, we can't resurrect him at all. Do you understand? Artoria said angrily. The reason we were able to resurrect the 6 great sages was because they left their true souls in the peach tree of immortality. At the same time, they borrowed the power of the peach tree to preserve their true souls for thousands of years, giving them the opportunity to resurrect. But this heavenly court's lackey is different. Even if he left his true soul behind, it will still be in the hands of the heavenly court. In any case, it won't be in our hands. Without the true spirit in hand, resurrecting him is impossible. You don't have to worry about that. I have her true soul. Guhan replied calmly. At the same time, he touched his ring finger, where he wore an aquamarine ring. Under Artoria's lead, Guhan and the others finally arrived at the peak of Kunlun Mountain in the far west. It's here. If our information is correct, this is where the guy's soul fell. It was said that this was the Queen Mother's palace. Later, the Queen Mother tricked the heavenly court's lackey into coming here. At the same time, she ambushed 4 desolate-level experts to kill him. In the end, he had no choice but to self-destruct. However, after he self-destructed, the Queen Mother's palace was completely destroyed. This place has become a barren land with nothing but ice and snow, Artoria said calmly. Following that, Ji Han and the rest spent nearly half a day searching the entire Kunlun Mountain carefully. When they finally regrouped at the peak of Kunlun Mountain, they were shocked to find that there was not a single soul in the entire Kunlun Mountain. It seems like the heavenly court's lackey's soul isn't here. It seemed like this result was what Artoria had hoped for. When Artoria said this, she felt a little relaxed. Either our information is wrong, and the lackey didn't die at the peak of Kunlun Mountain. After all, this is information from 800 years ago. After we received this information, we didn't spend any effort to verify it. It's very normal for there to be mistakes. Another possibility is that the heavenly court has completely destroyed that lackey's soul in order to avoid future troubles. I think the latter possibility is very likely. After all, it's such a powerful enemy. Only by completely destroying it can the heavenly court feel at ease. Moreover, his soul isn't like the souls of the 6 great sages. It's a bait to lure us out. His soul has no value. Destroying it is the right thing to do, Artoria said with certainty. Her analysis was very reasonable. Even Lionian Ling could not help but nod in agreement. She felt that the truth should be as Artoria said. No. Her soul is here, I'm sure. To Artoria and Lionian Ling's surprise, Guhan actually told them this with a very certain expression. Why are you so sure? Artoria asked with a frown. Because of my intuition, Guhan said faintly. What a ridiculous feeling. Aren't you people from another dimension? How can you feel the same as the people from our world? Artoria rolled her eyes at Guhan. Forget it, if you want to find it, I won't accompany you. But you two better hurry up. Master Lu Ban seemed to have said that you only had a week. 3 days have passed, and you only have 4 days left. If you can't wipe out the heavenly court in 4 days, you may never be able to go back. What the hell? I actually thought that you guys could really destroy the celestial court in 4 days. What a joke. Artoria muttered to herself, looking like a sulking teenage girl. She was extremely cute. Guhan, is this written in that strategy book? Seeing Artoria leave in a sulk, Lionian Ling moved closer to Guhan and asked softly. No. The contents of that walkthrough are basically useless. That's the walkthrough for the 120 mission. Ji Han shrugged his shoulders as he spoke. Then why are you so sure? Lionian Ling could not understand. I said it. This is my feeling. Guhan thought for a moment and then said, this is a feeling of love. Love your ass. Lionian Ling also rolled her eyes and followed Artoria's example. She ran to the side to rest and no longer wanted to talk to Guhan. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.